work with RTE in knowingly concealing the fact that these payments were coming from RTE. Can you respond to that, because that is the mood out there?
And thank you for having us here. In relation to that, were there deceptive practices on behalf of RTE? There were, and we were deceived as well, as we'd said earlier on. We'd no knowledge whatsoever of the arrangement and no part.
But you knew they were for consultancy fees, and they weren't actually it wasn't for consultancy. That's the doubt that everybody has.
So we were instructed by RTE, for the second and third invoice to the Renner Roadshow to make those invoices out, to ask us for consultancy services and send them to RTE, and that they would look after them from there.
Okay, we've heard.
At that time, we didn't know who Astis was, but we presumed that it was.
Can you understand
of Renner.
Can you understand why people are sceptical? Can you understand why people have concerns? The fact that it was consultancy fees was the description.
But they're the facts.
You said earlier that you were just following a process. Like, are you aware of any process, either in corporate governance or accounting, that allows for an invoice to be raised with a description that it's not actually for?
Well, I think again we were. It was what we were asked to do. Like as I said, we're a small company. They're a €350 million massive.
Serious. I mean,
no, but you have to appreciate that if somebody says invoice. And again, we were acting under instructions at all times.
Okay, so just on the same issue, Mr Tubridy, not being facetious here, but how would you describe your profession?
Broadcaster, or yeah.
Okay, never consultancy.
Not necessarily. No, I mean, I don't know how anyone else just chooses to describe my job, but I know what I do.
You've never partaken in consultancy. You don't do consultancy as your profession. You're a broadcaster.
No, I don't know what the dictionary definition of consultancy is. I'm not being smart, but I suspect no.
Okay, so that comes back to Mr Kelly's part in this and the raising of the invoices. He knowingly raised the invoices with the term consultancy fees on the invoice.
Yeah.
You know you're not a consultant. I'm sure Mr Kelly knows that you're not providing consultancy in any way, shape or form. I mean, I suppose what I'm trying to get at here is, do you still have full trust, faith in Mr Kelly, considering that it seems to be clear to everybody that there was some form of deception here with RTE and Mr Kelly using the term consultancy fees and also using a separate company that had never been used before?
Yes.
Do you still have full faith?
I do have full faith, yes, I do in Noel, and I think that he was doing his job, and in the course of his job he was given instructions, and in the course of the instructions he carried them out.
And you're happy that those instructions were to raise the invoice for consultancy fees, and he just went and did that without asking any questions?
Well, we would never have discussed that. I think that I would, if I was.
But now you know. Sorry.
Oh,
Ryan,
no, sorry. You're asking after the event. We're a bit late now. I mean, but yes, I think that if I was to look at so many of the things that I've been hearing at the various, Oireachtas hearings of the last 2 weeks, there's a lot of room for better practice around the place, and I suspect that as of Monday, with the new Director General, that's going to happen.
But
I think in some ways this is cathartic.
Not quite the question. The way the PAC committee played out this morning, the 3 hours,
yes,
where a lot of questions were put to Mr Kelly about the description of the invoices as consultancy fees, the fact that they came from CMS, which was different to how they would usually come from. I mean, there's a lot of doubts there among the public.
Yeah.
You knowing that now, and all of that being brought up today at today's PAC, can you still honestly say, despite the public sentiment out there, that you still have full faith and that you will continue to let Mr Kelly represent you?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Yes, I will.
Even though we hear the new DG on RTE radio yesterday, Kevin Bakhurst, when it was put the question specifically in relation to Mr Kelly, he was asked, would he work with agents like Mr Kelly again? He was asked, this is a yes or no answer. He said, not a definite yes, not a definite no, but he said, and I paraphrase, in all likelihood, it's a no. Does that not put your future at RTE in serious jeopardy?
No, it doesn't. I mean, I can still work with Noel and negotiate an agreement with RTE. It's different jobs. Noel, RTE is one element of what I do for a living.
So potentially any future arrangement you have with RTE would exclude Noel services?
What would you say to that?
No. Not necessarily. Sorry, if I could ask or just add to that. We manage a number of people. A lot of them don't have enough, like most of them are not full-time broadcasters. They have bits and pieces of work. I represent them I am their shop steward, I'm their union. I'm the only thing between them and absolutely nothing. Sorry, you have to get this right. So are you saying to me that a Director General would say...
Did you hear the DG's comments yesterday?
I read them, but that these people can't have representation.
What I got from those comments was, in all likelihood, you wouldn't be willing to work with you again. I mean,
I think it wasn't a flat no, but we will have to see.
Okay. Just in relation to, again, the €150,000, and I'm just trying to get to the bottom of facts here and trying to establish things. When did the €150,000 for those two latter invoices in particular, the two €75,000 invoices, when did they go to? They would have gone to your account first, Mr. Kelly?
We would have invoiced them. We would have invoiced Astus, and then they were paid. Yeah, but those two invoices. So the first invoice was paid by Renault.
Yeah.
And the second two invoices were paid
together
by Astus. Sorry, if I could just were paid by Astus, and therefore the first three events have happened. So those two invoices are for the next 6 events that are still contracted. So, as I said,
just want a kind of direct answer to the actual questions. When did the €150,000 for those latter two invoices go into it would be the CMS account?
Well, bear me a second. 2022.
2022, okay. And Mr. Tubridy or Mr. Kelly, one of you might be able to answer this. When did they go then into the Tuttle account? I presume they would have gone from, the payment of 150 would then have gone from you into the Tuttle account.
I don't have those. I would know what that was.
Could you find out that information?
It'll be in the 2022.
In the 2022.
Yeah.
So it would have been prior to the publication of the top earners on the 15th of February, I think, in 2023. Basically, Mr. Tubridy, I guess what I'm trying to get at here is that you would have seen this €150,000 come into your account. You would have seen that then it wasn't represented in the payments in February 2023. And I know you apologised for it before,
sorry, the 2023 publications was only for 2020-21 earnings. So it wasn't, the RTE publication was only for 2020-2021. Because generally they're 3 years. But they're 3 years behind as such. And as I said this morning as well, we get 10 minutes notice that these are going out.
But the invoice is related to which years?
The invoice is related to 2021-22.
So part of those 2022, part of the earnings that were published in February 2023 would have been related to 2021 as well.
They're still to be done.
They're still to be done. Okay.
Yeah.
I've got 1 minute left, so I'll just move on very quickly. Mr. Tubridy, in July of 2020, you got a letter addressed to you from the then DG, D. Forbes, basically stating the purpose of this correspondence is to record in writing our guarantee and our undertaking that the fees set out in this agreement will be paid by RTE without any reductions, and RTE shall not make any request or inquiry from you in relation to a reduction in the agreed fees during the currency of the agreements, save as those that might be imposed by changes to legislation. So essentially it's a letter saying that you will get no further reduction in fees or reduction in earnings. How does that sit with you, knowing that colleagues around you were taking pay cuts left, right and centre, but you have this, essentially it's special treatment. If myself and Alan here, if I was to receive a letter saying that, Christopher, you won't receive any further pay cuts, but Alan didn't get the same letter, that's special treatment for me. How does that sit with you?
I think it's probably important to mention the 40% pay cut I've taken. And I think that would be a relevant figure here in these conversations. I think what happens is, Deputy, is that some numbers have been isolated somewhat unfairly. And the truth of the matter is I did take pay cuts. And since 2012, I think, or more.
For the 6 years, 2012 to 2020.
2012 to 20. It was some total sum of approximately 40%.
You received a letter from the DG that no other staff or employee, to my knowledge, would have received. Does that not kind of scream special treatment?
Can I answer that one? That was a request that was in the contract negotiations, and why it was because Ryan had taken 120,000 of this 345 was never invoiced for and never taken. Ryan had never invoiced it, so he decided not to take that payment. Then in the 20 contract, which is 2021 to 2024, he reduces his earnings voluntarily by 105,000. So that was 525. plus the 120 which you didn't take. So overall from 12.
That's not really what I'm asking.
No, I know, but sorry.
It's kind of
I am going to have to draw
okay,
to an end.
very good. So my last question is to Mr Tubridy again. Do you accept, no, in your opening statement you say that you actually took a 20% pay cut. No, I thought Deputy McAuliffe's questioning earlier very clearly outlined that in fact this wasn't a 20% pay cut because those €75,000 invoices were coming from RTE. They were underwritten by RTE, essentially coming from the licence fee holder and the taxpayer and going into your account.
Yes.
Do you accept now that it's not a 20%?
No, unfortunately not. This is one of the great kind of fog of war situations here where the money that came in, enormous amount of money, I don't deny it for a moment, but it came from, of course, as we understood it, from Renault. So we thought it was it was a totally different agreement entirely. It was an independent contractor agreement that Renault were paying for it. And that was the understanding. That's what I was told. I had to accept that for what it is. I can't.
But now you know
that
how it worked. It was an underwriting. It was those two €75,000 invoices were underwritten by RTE, paid for by RTE taxpayers, TV license holders, to your account. Do you not accept that you actually haven't taken a 20% pay cut? It represents much less than that.
Again,
Sorry.
Deputy O'Sullivan, I'm sorry, we'll have to conclude, okay? And move on. Deputy Dowden.
Thanks very much, Caoirleach. And again, I'd like to thank our guests for
the
earlier session, very constructive. So I'll start again following on from Deputy O'Sullivan's line of question. RTE previously stated that they never made cash transactions to the barter system for presenters, and this was particularly unusual. So they outlined that primarily use was for media companies in exchange for goods and services. Can I ask Mr Kelly, have you ever made any cash payments to bartering system?
No, and we'd no knowledge of the arrangements. We'd no part in suggesting it or setting it up. We were not consulted about it. We weren't told of any at any stage. The nature of it.
Sorry, Chair. I want to get as much information out as possible, and the TDs only have 10 minutes. Okay. So just allow them to ask the question.
Sorry,
Mr Kelly, why would you not do a cash transaction through a bartering system?
I'm sorry.
Why would you not make a cash transaction through a barter system?
I'd never come across a barter system before this. I didn't. This was literally this was the first.
Well, we know earlier this morning that in 2018 you used Astas for a transaction through for your charity back in 2018.
No, we had not. No,
that was clarified this morning.
No. RTE took a table last year. And they put it to Astas. No.
Sorry,
not at all.
We're retracting that statement.
Sorry. Okay.
So, again, as I previously examined this morning, RTE raised an invoice with your company CMS for payment by a third-party company, Astas, who you didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay. That RTE had never previously dealt with, and you were under the instructions of the commercial manager, Geraldine O'Leary, not to put Ryan's name on the invoice. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah. And as I said, we didn't know who Astas was, and we presumed it was some company related to Renault.
Does that not sound bizarre to you? A note on the invoice sent to Geraldine O'Leary from the commercial manager clearly stated, don't put a person's name on the invoice. Did you ask that commercial manager to do that?
I can only reiterate.
Well, we see the email that went to Geraldine O'Leary with a note that said, don't put any person's name on the invoice. Did you instruct that?
No, they sent that to us.
This was sent to Geraldine O'Leary?
No, Geraldine O'Leary sent it. Sorry, so her person sent it to us. Sorry.
Yes. Did you instruct that person to not put a name on the invoice?
No, we were just, again, acting under instructions from RTE.
Who instructed you?
Geraldine O'Leary. So, as it was...
But this email didn't come from Geraldine O'Leary. It went to Geraldine O'Leary.
In it said, if it's sent back, I will sort everything out. We took comfort from this. What was
Sorry, Chair.
So what was done was as per RTE's request and RTE's instructions.
So it just doesn't add up why RTE went to such lengths and obviously did themselves so much damage not only to the taxpayer, but to their own reputation, to protect Mr Tubridy's name.
But this, Mr Tubridy was doing events for Renault, not for RTE. So Renault's the sponsor, he's doing events for Renault. We were paid by Renault. We understood this money would be paid by Renault. And there's still 2 years of events owed for Renault.
Did Renault reduce its overall advertising bill with RTE to cover this separate contract?
We have no relationship with Renault, so that's an RTE Renault. I'd have no knowledge of their advertising or sponsorship, or we wouldn't be party to any of that.
So you're not aware Renault were going to divert existing advertising budgets for RTE to cover a new contract or a separate contract that you were negotiating on behalf of Ryan Tubridy?
No, completely not.
Okay, so you're completely washing your hands off the deal which you were going to be a sole beneficiary of, and so was Ryan.
This deal was constructed by RTE with Renault for Renault. We were.
It's very difficult to accept that.
It was a completely separate contract for services. Like Ryan, his contract is for radio, 205 shows, TV, 38 2-hour plus shows, and this is completely separate, as would be his publishing work, as would be other work.
You were the sole beneficiary. You were going to get a commission fee on it. Ryan was going to get an extra top-up payment on top of his salary. So you're telling me that you were following instructions by RTE?
Yes, and this is a separate contract for services. Contract for services.
And they made you do it?
We acted under their instruction, as you can see, and that's why we've come here today, and that's why we've provided all of this documentation.
The alleged method, does suggest that you collaborated with RTE, as I said in the previous committee, to engage in the secret payment to the bartering system.
I'm not RTE.
But
I'm not RTE. That's a question for RTE.
But you were the beneficiary. You were the beneficiary of this, okay? With the intention of hiding the payment for your agent. Is that correct?
No.
Or can you provide clarification to address the accusation?
If you could you just repeat it one more time? Sorry.
So the intention of putting this payment through the bartering system, which normally RTE would never do cash transactions, was there an intention of hiding the payment made to your agent, Ryan Tubridy?
We were instructed by RTE that all invoices for the Renault Road show go to Astas for the services as they had stated.
Okay, so during an online meeting in May 2020 between yourself, the former DG, RTE solicitor,
yes,
and a colleague of yours, a verbal guarantee was given by RTE to underwrite the Renault commercial agreement. Is that correct?
Yeah, but previous to that, Breed O'Keefe had.
No.
Sorry,
but
previous to that, it had been agreed by RTE.
You must have been aware, Mr. Kelly, that in fact it was the taxpayers' money from RTE and not Renault's payment that was going to be supporting these invoices.
At every juncture, we expect this is Renault.
Renault were not in a position to renew the contract for the Late Late Show in 2020.
Why weren't they?
Was it not a case that...
No, Renault is still the sponsor.
Still the sponsor, but in terms of the tripartite agreement to underwrite these payments.
No, and again, anything to do with sponsorship, advertising, that's RTE and Renault. We have no, that's completely RTE and Renault relationship. It's nothing to do with us.
You must accept you played a pivotal role as the conduit to these under-disclosed payments. I'm blaming it on RTE now at the minute. Seems very difficult or credible for us to accept.
Okay, well, I would say to you, Deputy, that in an organisation that turns over 350...
That's not the question I asked.
Can I answer, please?
No, that's not the question.
Answer, please?
Answer the question.
Answer the question, Mr. Kelly.
I know, but...
You played a pivotal role in this.
RTE, under instruction,
through the
every
barter
time
system for a cash transaction that didn't have Mr. Tubridy's name on it.
We didn't know what a barter system was until all of this happened.
You're washing your hands of it.
Completely, it's an RTE issue. Completely.
Mr. Tubridy, some final questions just in relation to the discrepancy on what you were paid and what was published. Okay?
Yeah.
Why didn't you ask questions at the time?
Sorry, are you referring to the years 2017, 18 and 19?
Yes.
Would that be right to say? This is the reporting of my remuneration and why I didn't object to it at the time. Is that, am I right in saying that?
Yeah.
And we need to begin with the contract 2015 ran until 2020, just to be sure, to be certain. And it states clearly how much I was being paid every year of the 5-year contract for hosting the 2 shows, Late and the radio show. In addition to these sums, the contract states that I was to be paid a further sum of €120,000 in what has variously been called an exit fee or a loyalty bonus or what have you. And in reality, this was a fee
So really, Mr. Tubridy, you weren't aware of what you were being paid.
In reality, this was a fee to be paid at the end of the contract, where I would make myself available at any stage during the contract to do additional optional work for RTE. Okay. Now, as it turned out, in 2020, when that contract concluded, I was not called upon to deliver any of these additional pieces of work. So although I was entitled to payment for making myself available, I waived this entitlement. Okay. I didn't issue any invoice on the basis that I didn't want to be paid for work that I did not do.
Even though, can I ask Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
€150,000 for the 2 invoices. They still haven't been.
There's still 6. There's still 6 events due. Yeah, so we're contracted to do another 6.
Where is that money now at the minute? Whose account is it in?
If that's in Tuttle.
In Tuttle's account?
Yes.
Even though he's not the Late Late Show presenter?
Well, that's only now.
And is that money that should go back to?
Absolutely. I mean, the reality with that is that there has been no contact made on that issue. But what I'll say to you is that is referring to 6 outstanding appearances that were to be made for Renault. As you know, I'll finish, if I may. So I chose to leave the Late Late Show, as I mentioned last summer, made a decision to leave the Late Late Show. The stories are conflating a little. We can get to that later. But that's still outstanding work to be done. If that work is not called upon to be done, of course, money goes back.
Are you still getting paid by RTE at the minute?
Yes, I am, yeah.
And in relation to that verbal agreement in place, what are the terms?
I'm still sorry, as a presenter of the radio programme. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
I could be out of a job by Friday.
Okay. Thanks very much, Karen.
Thank you very much. Moving on, Deputy Imelda Munster.
Welcome to our guest,
Louise. Good to see you again.
I just want to start off, I suppose, firstly by saying I certainly know I would much prefer to be focusing on the abysmal lack of corporate governance within RTE, but it's fairness to say that you did ask to come here, so to put your side on the record and to answer questions of us. And I just want to, yourself, Mr Tubridy, first, I mean, you sat through 3 hours this morning and then we had the hour break, but just over the break on reflection, do you accept that in reality, and no one of the deputies raised it a few minutes ago, that you didn't actually take the 20% pay cut when you take on board the tripartite agreement that paid you 75,000? Yeah.
I understand why that perception is out there, but we have really tried very hard to explain the difference between being paid separately by Renault versus being paid by RTE, and then the pay cut involved, and then trying to explain that also the accumulation of pay cuts to take it from 40% pay cut since 2012. I mean, I have tried to reflect that, but in answer to your question, which is obviously a very fair question, I can understand why there is confusion, and I can understand why there's a perception issue, of course, but it's not right.
Okay, but that's fair enough. But in reality, and that's why I said in reality,
yes.
RTE actually footed that bill. The public purse footed that bill. They'd no business underwriting a separate commercial deal, but they actually paid the 375,000 payments.
No. There's 375.
They paid.
I'm sorry. This is why, and I say this really respectfully. This is why I am in such a terrible state at the moment, because there's been so much misunderstanding and misreporting, and about this and about these figures. And that figure you just mentioned, that's not a real figure at all. And it's not a fair figure. And it just gets thrown at your head. And you're trying to. That's why we're here today, to try and right that,
Okay.
because unfortunately, like that story Doubt, when a feather leaves the pillow, it's very hard to get that back. And unfortunately, with my good name, the feather has left the pillow.
I'm hoping
and I'm here trying to put the feather back in the pillow.
And I'm hoping that you can put the feather back in the pillow, as you say.
Thank you, Deputy.
The 275 payments, the second and third year, they were paid by RTE.
Again,
They were paid by Astas.
Yes, but RTE made those payments to Astas.
The payments to us were Astas.
Yes, but they came from RTE.
But we didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's it.
No, but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's the whole misunderstanding.
Yeah, but you know now in hindsight.
Oh, yeah.
Whether you didn't know at the time or not is another question, Mr. Kelly. But you know now that RTE paid those payments. So that was my question to you initially, Ryan, in relation to the tripartite would have made up for the 20%. Yes. But even if you dispute that, and that's fair enough.
No, what I would say to you, it was for work outstanding, separate to what I had done previously in RTE. So it was meant to be a separate content. The whole thing got muddled.
Okay.
And in fairness to Deputy Dillon, who asked the question about, if you don't do that work for Ren or whatever, what happens to that money? The money goes back. I'm not going to. I don't want money for nothing, for goodness sake. Of course. So I totally understand that. I hope that answers your question a bit better, maybe than earlier.
And just in relation to that, now that you know RTE paid for those payments, do you accept that was wrong of RTE to use the public purse to pay that?
I think it's been what I would say to you. I'm not here to be critical of RTE. I've been working there since I was 12 years old. It's a very important place to me. But I have to defend myself, okay? And the new Director General of RTE has asked for maximum transparency. That's what he said in the last 48 hours. That's why I'm here.
Okay. So you accept that was wrong for them to pay out of the public purse?
It strikes me as being unorthodox.
Okay, that's fair enough, thanks. I just want to ask Mr. Kelly, I find it very hard to believe, or I just don't find it credible, that you said earlier this morning that RTE initiated this whole deal, that RTE were the instigators of this tripartite deal, that the whole thing.
Sure.
But what I can't figure out is why, if your client was the only one to benefit from such a deal, why would RTE be the one to initiate a deal, to develop that deal that's going to cost them money by underwriting, but yet your client was the only one to benefit by that? It's clear you wanted a commercial deal, otherwise you wouldn't have entered into it in the first instance, and a guaranteed and underwritten payment by RTE. But at the same time, we were watching COVID spread from the east. And in February, while the emails were going back and forth around this deal, I think it was Italy had already gone into lockdown. So the deal, that was in February when Italy went into lockdown, and these emails were going round. So was it not a case that you saw a way for income to be guaranteed by RTE and lock them into that agreement, that they would have to forfeit up, which transpires that that's exactly what happened?
I did the contract before COVID. The contract was done for the start of 2020, and COVID happened in March of 2020.
Yeah, but no, I've just told you that Italy had already gone into lockdown in February. These emails are going back and forth in February. And you had requested RTE underwrite the agreement. You told us that this morning.
Sure.
You had requested that they lock that agreement, that they were the fall guy. Had this, if any sponsor pulled out, or in the lack of no other sponsor. But you knew it was coming into COVID. You knew COVID was there. You knew the lockdown had already started, the likelihood it was going to come across, and that was your way of locking in. Now, who's ultimately responsible for all of this? I've said it from the beginning, the executive board of RTE. They're the one that underwrit a commercial deal that they'd no business doing. They're the one that raised false invoices, and response you gave to that is not credible either. But they also put those payments through their barter account. But is it not true that the only person that benefited from this deal was your client?
No, because who would benefit from this deal? Obviously, Renault was a major sponsor, probably the biggest sponsor, I'm assuming, in RTE's portfolio. RTE obviously wanted to keep them on board. So who would benefit by having Ryan Tubridy doing roadshows for 5 years? Renault would, because then the association would obviously continue for that 5 years, and then I'm assuming that RTE then would keep Renault on as a sponsor. The relationship with RTE is with Renault, it's not with us. And in relation to the actual contract, this started long before, I mean, COVID was, well, when it really hit, it was the 13th of March 2020 when people had to work from home. This was well before that. What I was asking them to do, and I never wanted RTE to underwrite this. This was always a relationship, a separate agreement with Renault. What I wanted RTE to do is that if there was a change of sponsor, and there still isn't a change of sponsor, so Renault was always going to pay for this. If there was a change of sponsor, that we would be able to, be part of that agreement, so that you wouldn't just you have to do this, you have to do that.
But Renault did just do. It was just a 1 year agreement. They did just the 1 year agreement.
No, it was a 5 year agreement. And Renault still sponsored, but the first 2 years, 20 and 21, were pushed out because of COVID. And the first lot of events happened in 22, and then the other 6 are owed. And as Ryan said, if they want them to be honoured, and we're still in contract, he will honour them, and if they don't, he will hand the money back.
But RTE had underwritten that agreement at your request.
What RTE were underwriting with me was that they would interact with whatever new sponsor was there, but again, all under instruction from RTE, Deputy.
Yeah, does it not sound more plausible that, as I said, your client was the only one to benefit? We were coming into COVID, you sought them, you asked, negotiated that they underwrite the agreement. They're responsible for underwriting it and all the shenanigans we've seen since. But at the end of the day, you had asked them. But I've only a couple of seconds left. Just one final question, Mr Kelly. When RTE published the salaries, and particularly your client's salary, you would have known that wasn't correct as such, right? And you'd have checked the published figures. But even for the sake of your own client, optically, why did you not, the fact that they were being misrepresented, what did you do about that?
Well, we had asked before, because again, the top salaries, there's 10 or 15 minutes notice, then they're out. It's generally a Friday, so we put in the contract that we wanted at least, could we have 48 hours notification? If we'd had notification on all of this, we would have been able to say, this is wrong, they were wrong.
But you didn't call it out after it, though.
No, we did. We actually put it in the contract negotiations that we want to be informed.
But publicly, I'm saying, it would have saved your client a lot of hassle and having to explain things. You didn't.
So in the document, page 6, you'll see, please note that these matters are private and confidential. Any PR, as in figures and fees going out, any PR set to be released by RTE needs to be discussed in advance of any publication. This includes salaries and pay cuts. And so we of course you want to see them, but they're out. Literally.
Yeah, but you could have set the record straight.
But that's exactly what we did there, page 6 of this document. That's exactly what we're doing.
This document, I'm talking about publicly. You would have saved Mr Tubridy a lot of questions and hassle had you called it out publicly at the time.
But as you can see, under declaration, over declaration, RTE put these figures out, not us. And if we had put them out, and also they were stated.
Yeah, it just seems to be, and I'm not saying they're in the thick of it, but you seem everything today is RTE's fault, RTE's fault, RTE's fault. This is a simple enough question that you, as your client's agent, could have publicly rectified. It's not the biggest issue, but you could have publicly rectified it, and you chose not to.
We informed RTE, and we also tried to put it in as part of the contract. RTE are the ones that keep on sending the figures out, not us.
You didn't correct it.
I have to move on. Thank you, Deputy Munster.
Thank you, Deputy.
Calling on Peter Fitzpatrick. Deputy Peter Fitzpatrick.
Just like to welcome our witnesses, and I just hope that we can get the truth. My first few questions will be for Mr Tubridy. The first one will be RTE engaged in the deceptive practices, but hiding payments, misrepresentation of financial reporting, and hiding information. Yes, RTE was responsible, but you didn't take action to resolve these errors. This is an act of deception. Do you agree?
No, of course I don't agree with that assertion. That's why we're here today, to counter that, and that's why you have a document full of answers to the questions that are essentially put to me in your question.
So you're saying you didn't hide payments?
No.
You didn't misrepresent the financial reporting?
No.
And you're hiding no information?
Correct.
Okay. Do you realise that the people are looking up to you and they really, really feel let down by you? I don't know all these people are rubbing your shoulders and rubbing your hand, because I tell you one thing, if you came to County Louth, it'd be the opposite. On the 3rd of March, you shut down talks of you leaving the Late Late Show. You had a cushy number, you were well liked, nobody would give you a wimp. A week later, questions started to be asked and your retirement announcement came nearly 9 days later. You repeatedly stated this morning's committee that you were leaving the Late Late Show had nothing to do with this. As you put it, the Covenant fiasco. You stated this time is simply coincidence. You stated that in your statement that you first became aware of the Grant Thornton review in May. Is this true?
Deputy.
I'm only asking a question.
And I'm only answering.
Yes.
Let me tell you.
Just answer the question, please.
Yeah. Your dismissal of the good people of Ireland who have the courtesy and the kindness to approach me on the street is not something I appreciate on their behalf.
They approach me too.
Deputy, secondly, I wish I'd brought them with me in some ways, the countless cards and letters I've received from people around the country, speaking words of kindness and indeed wisdom, and I wouldn't like to dismiss their decency either. Thirdly, no.
If you had been made aware, would you have stayed in your position until the end of your term, or would you have resigned if you'd known?
It is a hypothetical that is unbecoming. I think of the committee. No, but I would also say, I get the sense that you choose not to believe my reason for leaving the Late Late Show.
I'm only asking the questions. I'm not asking my people.
And Deputy,
yep.
Please, I'm only answering your question.
Well, you're not answering him.
I have answered. I've answered you quite clearly. That's the word no. And equally, with my answer to you regarding the Late Late Show, if you choose not to believe me, I think that's a terrible pity, because
I'm only asking questions.
You live with a lack of truth then.
Right, if RTE were overstating the amount of money that were paying you, I'd like to know...
Sorry, I can't hear you.
If RTE were overstating the amount of money that were paying you, where's the balance of the money? In the public service, any recipient, but you're the recipient of overpayment, is obliged to return that overpayment. Would you be willing to return this overpayment to the public funds? This is taxpayers' money. Your audience.
Yes.
So would you be willing to return the overpayments to the public funds?
You need to refer to the document, Deputy, where you will find...
Please answer the question.
I will. Yeah, there have been no overpayments or of any sort. There were overstatement of payments by RTE because of their unfortunate accountancy errors.
I said if RTE were overstating the amount of money and you knew they were overstating the amount of money, I'm asking a question on one side. In the public service, any recipients of overpayments is obliged to return the overpayments. Would you be willing to return this overpayment?
Yeah, no, the difficulty here is understatements. No.
Did you have any other undisclosed commercial involvement with a third party?
Again, please.
Did you have any other undisclosed commercial involvement with a third party?
No.
Okay. Did you really think that the rental deal, that the people wouldn't think you were trying to avoid a pay cut? So people know about the rental payment. Do you honestly think that people don't think 1 and 1 is 2?
I think that the nature of an independent contractor signing a deal with a different company is pretty complicated. To be honest with you, I'm not a very smart man when it comes to these things. That's why I pay a smart man to do that for me. So you'll have to forgive me for not having a great grasp of the detail here, but I never set out to cause any confusion to anyone at any time, ever. I never underestimate the intelligence and the decency of the Irish people.
Well, it is difficult for the Irish people to reconcile that the rental deal was an entirely separate arrangement when it was formed part of the 2020 contract negotiation. What gives rise to defaults? She had a wee side note on the 19th of December. Did you make a threat that you're going to walk with your job? At the time, through your weekly radio shows and as a presenter of the flagship Late Late Show, this brought in significant proportion of money and commercial revenue to RTE. And when they were under severe financial pressure, did you leverage this fact and did you pressure the Director General to keep you happy?
No.
It never come up?
I didn't negotiate with the Director General, Deputy. I gave them back money as it happens. Noel will fill you in on that if you wish to hear them.
Mr Kelly, you're putting the sole blame on RTE regarding this fiasco. Why did you ask RTE, a public body, to guarantee payments due from Reynolds, a substantial private company, to have Ryan Tubridy commercial obligations underwritten with taxpayers' money? Mr Tubridy always said in the show, we're all in it together, and this money is public money. Do you think this is unacceptable?
So, firstly, the agreement with Renault is with RTE. In relation to public money, we were paid by Renault. Our understanding...
So you were paid by RTE?
No, we were paid by Renault. We were paid by Renault. And then we were paid by Astas. And we understood that Astas was involved with Renault. So all times we were acting under instruction from RTE. The relationship with Renault is with RTE. It's not with us.
Right, RTE rejects the claim that incorrect versions of events were presented to the Oireachtas there last week regarding the RTE agreement to underwrite payments. Within your pack, you provided email evidence to prove your point. An email isn't a contract, I'm sure you know that.
Sure.
The position of either party could easily change in minutes or days. Can you show us the actual contract?
So the contract...
Do you have an actual contract?
So, exactly what contract?
Do you have a contract? Do you have a contract? You're saying that you had agreement by an email, right? I'm saying, do you actually have a physical contract? You know what?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Do you have a contract?
I appreciate. Sorry. As you said,
yes or no? Do you have a contract? I'm sorry, I don't mean to flush you.
Sorry. We're dealing with a €350 million operation, RTE, huge. I, at any time, would just assume that they knew what they were doing. We have a contract. The email from the CFO confirms that this is their position. And again, there's no secret. There was no secret. And then D. Forbes verbally said that they would honour the contract. All we wanted them to honour was, we never thought that RTE would ever pay this, ever. All we wanted them to do was, if the sponsor changed, that we would be able to have an interaction with the sponsor, because the relationship with the sponsor and RTE, that's the relationship. So we needed to if the sponsor changed, that we could renegotiate and rework what they may want to do. That was all.
In relation to the consultancy fee invoices, you simply followed instructions.
Yes.
In fact, you are a very, very successful negotiator, and 3 of your top talent is in RTE. Why was this not questioned? Neither of you are consultancies. If RTE told you to invoice a company you never heard of, why did you not question this? It makes no sense.
I suppose it's obvious now, but at the time we were just acting under instruction. We have been working with them for 23 years. I never saw any reason why RTE would be doing anything deceptive. Why would you? The national broadcaster. I'd listen and look and pay my licence like everybody else. Why would you? Honestly.
Do you have a relationship with the incoming Director General Kevin Bakhurst, since he previously served as a deputy Director General? Do you have a relationship with him?
I would have met him a couple of times, but the same. I met D. Forbes 6 or 7 times. But as I said, I wouldn't have. I don't have relationships with these people. We meet them with their lawyers, with their accountants, in their boardrooms. I haven't had a cup of tea with them. I haven't had lunch with them or dinner with them. These are people that you meet in the main tower in RTE when you're negotiating contracts. But I don't know these people. They're not my friends. I don't know them.
Right, just my last question anyway. You DocuC signed the tripart contract, which was provided last week on behalf of Ryan Tubridy on the 23rd of April this year. It is almost as if someone found out that the auditors had discovered the unreported payments to Mr Tubridy, and the Ryan Tubridy and Forbes were told, and both decided to jump ship before the scandal became public. I'm just going to say, when is a contract not a contract? That's the question I'm being asked by the public.
When is the contract?
Two people seem to jump ship at the same time, right? It's that coincidence as well. Everything seems to be coincidence.
Sorry, who's?
I'll read the question again here, right?
But
Sorry.
Who's jumped ship?
Sorry. Last week, people were jumping ship.
Oh,
I feel as though you
from
jumping
RTE?
ship. Yes.
No, I think he means from your client, to be honest.
I feel as though that like Ryan Tubridy and Defoe seen a jump ship at the same time, right?
Oh, no.
So I'm saying it's like coincidence as well.
I wasn't jumping ship. I'm still.
Ryan's still under contract.
So he's not under contract.
He is under
His contract is, sorry, Mr Tubridy's contract is up. He's been paid. When's your contract up?
It's in
2025.
2025.
Yeah, but we're not told the contract was up there on the 31st of... you're renegotiating your contract at the moment, is that right?
Renegotiating,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, renegotiating for radio-only services, but the contract still stands. The contract is still standing.
So the money you're getting at the moment is just for the radio station?
That's my understanding of it, yes.
No, sorry, do you not know what you're getting paid? No.
I mean, Deputy, it's been a long 3 weeks, as
hold
I
on
have
a
to say.
minute,
And I do know, you know what I'm getting paid. It's written in my contract. I'm here today to tell you that. But it is being currently, as Noel will tell you, it's being currently, they've suspended the negotiation. So that's why we're in a bit of abeyance at the moment until I'm told, as I said to you 2 minutes ago, I could be out of a job on Friday or I could be back to work next Monday.
So it's still a possibility that you could still be getting paid for the Late Late Show. And
Oh, no,
Not the
slightest.
No.
No, sorry, not the slightest.
So at the moment, all you're getting paid is for the radio station?
Well, that's my understanding.
Yes. TV services are finished. They finished at the last
Absolutely.
Late Show, which would have been in May.
Okay. And
I
to
don't-
conclude,
just one
Deputy
second. No,
Fitzpatrick,
sorry,
yeah.
no, I don't say, listen, I'm asking the questions that the people who put me in the job is here, right? People are very, very disappointed about you, right? And in fairness, I will put my hand up and say, fair play to 2 years coming here today. Like, you didn't have to come in here today, but you did come in here to ask the questions. But I'm just trying to say that people just want to know the truth, what's actually happening at the moment is.
Okay.
Last week and the week before, we seem to be told lies. All I'm hoping for is that the information that we got today from both of you is the truth. And if it is the truth, we'll all put our hands up. But I'm just saying that the public
No, thank
are
you.
very...
Sorry.
Fitzpatrick, can I ask you to conclude?
It's the public money. It's this money that people are really sad over. And you, Mr Tubridy, you're the one that kept mentioning the cost of living and everything. You're the one that in the programme, we all are in this together.
Change how I felt.
Thank you, Deputy Fitzpatrick. Can I move on?
I love your county very much.
Yeah, see the way you feel. There's millions of people in Ireland feel worse.
This I understand.
Deputy Griffin, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, and thanks to Mr Tubridy and Mr Kelly for volunteering to come in. And I think it's important that that's stressed as well, because this is very much forming a part, particularly your appearance here, Mr Tubridy, in terms of trying to rebuild confidence in the national broadcaster. For many people, you personify RTE. And as we saw when you were finishing up in the Late Late Show, there was a massive outpouring of appreciation for the job you did over the last 14 years. You would have received hundreds, probably thousands of pieces of messages, correspondence. I was one of the people who dropped you a note at the time to wish you well in the future. But people looking in now, that confidence has been rattled.
Yes.
So today's hearing is very important in terms of establishing the facts, and that's what we're trying to do here.
Yes.
No one's out to get anyone, but we want to establish the true facts for the people of this country. So to get a little bit further along the road, Mr Kelly, I want to know more about the type of relationship that you have and have had with RTE executives over the past number of years. How would you describe it? Would it be healthy? Would it be...
It would always be healthy, and it would always be frank. It's RTE's job to get the best deal they can. It's my job to get the best deal that I can.
Would there be executives afraid of you, would you say?
No, but sure, how could you be afraid of me? Like, honestly, it's 5'6" me. No, and look, over the last 2 weeks, all sorts of pictures are painted. But I'm here to work on behalf of my clients.
Did you ever threaten to sue RTE in the past?
Sue them?
Yeah.
No.
No, never. Or did you ever? Was there ever any discussions about surrounding Operation Transformation?
Oh, Operation Transformation. That was an independent production company, wasn't RTE.
But did you pitch the idea to RTE first?
Yes, that was my idea.
Did you subsequently threaten them with legal action?
No. Lord rest him, we worked with Jerry Ryan, and Jerry Ryan's radio show figures, the measure for radio figures is JNLR, and when they go down, and it's really people in, so I suppose Radio Land, when they go down, they go, oh my goodness, they're down, and what do you do? If they go down, say 2 or 3 times over a 12-month period, your job's under threat, like literally, and you're an independent contractor.
You didn't threaten to sue them?
No, but what I did was, we had come up with the idea of Operation Transformation for Jerry, and an independent production company tried to say that it was their idea.
How did you settle the issue with RTE? How did it finish?
We settled with the production company.
with the production company.
Yeah, because I think it's a
was the figure?
I think it's a wonderful programme, and I wanted it to be out on RTE.
What was the figure?
Oh, it wasn't very much.
Okay, was it? I mean, are we talking 5 figures? Or are we talking?
It's not relevant.
6 figures?
It's not relevant.
I think it is. Because I want to establish what was the feeling around RTE when they're dealing with you, that these are the types of things that can happen.
Yeah. There was a confidentiality agreement in it.
It is relevant, though. Could I just ask you, when you said earlier about the emergence of the tripartite deal that had nothing to do with Ryan's new contract for TV and radio services, and Rinno were paying it, so it was just a coincidence of timing, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, it was instigated by RTE.
You can understand why people might find that hard to believe, but,
sure, but
coincidences happen. On page 5 of the document pack today, then it's clear that the 75,000 of guaranteed commercial income was baked in from the very start, really, wasn't it?
Again, from RTE.
Okay. So you're saying to me that they came up with this completely on their side only. You never solicited anything of the sort?
No. I mean,
No.
Ryan had been doing the show for quite a while, and I'm assuming, well, RTE wanted to do it, and you can only assume that they wanted to keep the sponsor locked in for the next 5 years, and this be a way that they could actually do that.
Okay. And Ryan, could I just ask you, pre-2020, were you doing gigs for Rinno at that stage?
No.
Nothing ever before? No. So there was nothing part of your contract for RTE or anything like that?
No. I don't think so.
Okay. And could I just go back to you, Mr Kelly, then, in relation to the VAT rate that you received for the services? Was it a 0% VAT rate, or was it 23%? 0% would be applicable to the UK, whereas 23% would be the rate if it was paid by RTE. So,
yeah, it was whatever the applicable rate was that we were told to put on it by RTE.
so was it 0% or 23%?
I honestly. Sorry. Zero.
Zero.
It's UK.
Thinking to a bit. And could I just ask then as well, could you explain to me, last week when Geraldine O'Leary was here, in year 2, quote, in year 2, 2 weeks ago, I had no involvement, there was no payment. In year 3, I was advised by the Director General that there was pressure to pay. There were outstanding amounts. I did not understand at the time they were underwritten by RT. I was asked to liaise with Noel Kelly management to raise the invoices to the Barter account. And there's reference to that then as well, that between the 13th, in the Grant Thornton report, 13th to the 29th of March 2022, communications between agents and Ryan Tubridy chasing payment on foot of the underwriting of the commercial agreement, notwithstanding the ceasing of the tripartite agreement, RT had a contractual obligation to make 2 payments of 75,000. So who's telling the truth here? They're both, those versions of events are at odds with each other.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
So what we're told here is that there was communications between yourselves and RT about chasing up the 150,000. So you obviously must have known that it was coming from RT at that stage.
No, we exactly the.
Do you not think it's funny that why would you go to RTE for Rinno or the people who were supposed to be
because
paying?
we were asked to send the invoices to RTE. Again, this was RTE.
Did you ever have contact with anyone in Rinno about the deal?
No. Apart from the actual activation itself, what it'd be like, the setup.
Did anyone in Rinno tell you that they were no longer paying the money?
No.
No. No one at all in Rinno informed you that?
No.
Or Mr Tubridy? No one? Okay. And when are these 6 more gigs going to happen, the 6 more Rinno events?
When they're called upon.
There'll be interesting events, there'll be a big turnout, I'd say.
Well, if they're not called upon, obviously money gets handed back.
Would you provide copies of correspondence in that period, January to March 2022, of correspondence you had in terms of chasing up those invoices? It's referred to here in the report, and it's 2.17 of the Grant Thornton review. So the correspondence referred to their records. Would you provide the committee with those details?
Yeah, sorry. In page 25, that's the email where they ask us to raise it, send it into them.
Yeah. If RT never knew or hadn't dealt with CMS previously, how did they know to instruct you to send invoices through it at that stage?
Because my email is at CMS. We are CMS and NK, so they just asked us to raise it that way.
Was that strange though? Wouldn't everything else previously would have been through NK and next thing they went with
I
CMS.
I think there's a lot of things that seems
Did you
strange
ask them
now.
did you ask them?
But at the time,
Did you suggest it?
did we suggest?
Did you suggest that it would go through CMS?
No.
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 Because still I have people looking in, this looks like another layer to try to cover up.
But
what
sorry,
happened.
Deputy, we came here today to tell you everything we know.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to do.
Well, I'm trying to ask you
And there's
questions.
absolutely no deception on our part.
putting
Everything is
scenarios to you.
factual. You know, and we've had our legal people work along with us with RTE on all contracts. So
You're saying no, you did not suggest that it would go through CMS at any
not
stage?
at all, not
No,
at all.
you were nobody working with you on your behalf?
No.
No. You're confident of that?
100%.
Could I ask Mr Tubridy, just in relation to the Toy Show Live event, was there one pitched by...
No, it was never pitched as an idea, no.
No.
Was it? Sorry, was it pitched?
No, sorry, it was.
Sorry,
was.
my apologies. Sorry.
I've said that. So the Toy Show Live, years ago, when the Toy Show was running, and the Toy Show was just such an institution, there was some deals done with RTE commercial with, I'm not sure who the clothing manufacturer was, but sort of jumpers and pyjamas and stuff like that, you know, for around the Toy Show. And we said to them as an idea, what you should actually do is take it, the actual physical set, take it to somewhere like the RDS so people can see it and enjoy it, because obviously on the night...
And this was to have Mr Tubridy as the presenter?
No, this is nothing to do with Ryan. This was to do with that you should actually take the set and show the set off. If they were going to do something with the Toy Show, don't put it maybe on jumpers and pyjamas. Actually take it out there and let people see it and what it was.
And Ryan, could I just ask you, when did you learn that Jane Murphy and Catherine Johan were planning the Toy Show, the musical?
Probably at the early stages they would have told me that they were planning this.
Okay, and did you have a dispute with them about this because of the Toy Show Live event?
No, the Toy Show Live never came to anything. This is the whole point, that the musical was a totally separate entity, and they decided they came up with a very ambitious thing to do, and given the nature of my job, there was no way I was going to be in a position to get involved, so
you
I wish
didn't
them
have any
well.
dispute with them about it, or there was friction?
I would have thought, no, that this was a big ambitious project and another way to maybe...
I don't recall, like I listen a lot to RTE radio, I don't recall a massive promotion on your part of Toy Show the musical.
Well, that's because the ads did the talking. There were plenty of them.
But you didn't have any guests on talking about it at any stage on the show?
There were multiple mentions, if I'm not mistaken, on the Late Late Show. Yes, sure.
On the radio show?
I can't recall, but it wasn't done out of any badness.
Were you asked at any point to promote it and refuse? Did that happen?
No, I don't think I would be that. I would be.
Or were reluctant? I can understand maybe why you might be reluctant to get involved with the brand, because it looked like it was.
No, I wish. At any time I was asked about the musical, I always wished them well. I had no ill will towards it.
Okay. Noel Kelly, could I just ask you again there in relation to the Late Late Show? And look, it's a very. I mean, it has hundreds of thousands of viewers. It's can be a very lucrative slot if you get an appearance there for someone who's launching a book or a film or whatever. What is your role there in terms of influencing guest appearances on the Late Late Show?
None.
None whatsoever?
None, sure. That's all editorial.
Yeah. Do you have any influence on that, though? I mean, have you ever in the past asked to get someone on the Late Late Show?
No. Sure, apart from Ryan.
Apart from Ryan? Anyone else? Any of your clients? Have you ever...
No, it's editorial.
Like, can you see how you'd be conflicted with one of your clients being the presenter and you have other clients you represent, some of whom have appeared on the Late Late Show?
It's guests, everything else that's purely RTE editorial. Sure, I'd have nothing to do with that.
How would you see your role in the future in the changing culture in RTE? Would you see your position being under threat in terms of where you'd slot in there?
We work with Netflix, we work with streamers, we work with all the new media that's out there. We've people working in the UK, we've people working in the United States. What I love doing is nurturing young talent and finding young talent and getting them book deals or maybe getting them a TV show. That's what I love doing. So that's where I'd see myself. That's always where I've seen myself. You know. Would
you go through, when you get a chance, like we had two lengthy hearings last week in the media committee, the PSE have also had hearings, but you know, there's a long summer there. I think it would be helpful if any other mistruths that you allege that the RTE executives or board members may have conveyed to the committees in the last number of weeks, would you bring those to our attention? I think it would be important as a committee that would happen.
In relation to mistruths, I'm not here in relation to what other people felt, see or saw. We're just in relation here to what we knew, what was contracted, what we had agreed. And all I can talk about is all that I know. And not what other people said or do or think, and certainly after the last 2 weeks, if I was
There's
to
nothing
do
else
that,
that you're aware of.
Deputy Reference, the last question.
Yeah, so there's nothing else that was said last week that you're aware was untrue that you haven't told us about today?
that I'm aware of. I said no, that I'm aware of, no.
Okay. If I may say so, thank you for the letter you sent, albeit after the event, and I hope that I can regain the trust of your family and people around your constituency, because that's my job.
It's a key part of rebuilding.
No, I know that, but I just want to say thank you.
I'm going to just conclude because I have to move on to the next opportunity.
And the income base is seriously in
Warfield.
jeopardy.
This I understand.
Thank you. Senator Warfield.
You're both very welcome here.
Thank you.
A question just firstly for Noel Kelly. What did you think when RTE asked for an invoice to be made out for consultancy fees?
When they asked for that, again, sorry, under instruction from RTE, I didn't like. It's RTE. It's this institution. It's it's 100 years old. Why would you question it? It's easy to say now, but at the time, why would you?
Yeah.
And their instructions, they said, we're just a little company.
Yeah. RTE is a company with a terrible employment record in many respects. They're being investigated by the Department of Social Protection. 500 workers potentially classed as self-employed when they should be employees. 60% of investigations have led to employees being reclassified as, or self-employed people being reclassified as employees. So it's an organisation in many respects with a tarnished employment record. But still, you think that you wouldn't, for a moment, have any doubt about RTE and how they might behave around staff?
I suppose, look, I'm 60, I've been brought up with RTE, listening to RTE radio, watching, RTE. We went to, Ryan did a good bit of work with BBC, and we went to BBC, and I was expecting to be blown away by, oh my God, this is going to be incredible. It wasn't that. As in, RTE is a fantastic organisation, great people, great producers, directors, floor managers, people on reception. It's an amazing organisation, fabulous people. And I want RTE to win. I want RTE to win. But also there's a fantastic commercial sector here in Ireland. News Talk, Today FM, Midlands Radio. And they survive purely on commercial revenue, purely.
Can I ask you about the sector as a whole? Mm-hmm. You represent a number of high-profile RTE personalities, but you also represent personalities in rival media organisations as well. What a lot of people are earning in our sector, or in the media sector. So you can go to RTE and say, one of my clients wants a pay rise. They might say no. You might go to a commercial radio station or a TV station. You have a significant amount of wealth, a wealth of knowledge, and a significant amount of power to go down to that commercial TV station or radio station, knowing full well what presenters are earning. Because some of them are your clients as well. Mm-hmm. Is it good for the media sector in Ireland to have, quite a dominant role in setting remuneration across the sector?
So to that end, there's more people being paid more money in the commercial sector than in RTE. Higher salaries, purely because everything is based on commercial, JNL or the right figures. So if you're hitting the right figures, then they're getting the right advertising. So RTE is a hybrid. RTE has...
Do you have a monopoly, though?
What?
Do you have a monopoly?
Not at all.
As an agent?
Like a monopoly isn't commercial. Commercial is fantastic because people are paid more in commercial because the value is... They know what the true value is. But,
What happens if two of your clients are going for the same job?
The best one gets it.
But surely you have to back, for want of a better word,
no.
I don't want to describe anyone.
No.
You have to back someone.
If you think about it, when Pat gave up the Late Late Show, Jerry Ryan went for it, and I don't give the job, so my assumption is that they wanted a younger demographic. They needed somebody to bring in a younger audience, and Jerry, look, at the end of the day, it's the executive, it's the board that decide who gets the job. It's like any job, the number of people can interview you, but they decide in the end who actually gets the job. But from that end, I know at the time, were you only 35 when you got the Late Late Show?
Yeah, I think so. About
He was
35 or 6, yeah.
It was all about a younger demographic. That's what they wanted to try and bring in younger people into RTE1, which had been traditionally more of an older audience demographic.
Mr Tubridy, do you mind me asking you, why are you an independent contractor?
That was the advice I was given. You've got to understand, Senator, that my skill set does not belong in the world of finance and negotiation, and that's why Noel is there. And the advice, did it come from RTE about becoming independent contractors?
Originally, the independent contractor status came from RTE when Gay Byrne was there, and subsequently that it was set up as a vehicle that because of the commercial revenue that they brought in. And again, the commercial revenue versus license fee. License fee is 55%, commercial revenue is 45%. In 2001, commercial revenue, or license fee revenue was 190 million, commercial revenue was 148 million. So there's only 5% difference in it. And as a result, that muddies the market for all the other local radio stations, national radio stations, TV stations.
As you said, it's a hybrid.
It's a hybrid.
And
it's a hybrid. There's
that makes
petrol
it
and electricity.
complicated.
It's very complicated. Very complicated.
Mr Tubridy, you say that under the terms of your contract you're allowed to do additional work outside of RTE.
Yes.
Is that the reason you're satisfied to be an independent contractor?
Well, it helps.
It allows you to do it allows you to do additional work.
Well, yeah, you could say that. I mean, it helps if I want to write a book about John F. Kennedy or about a multicoloured sheep, both of which I've written about for different reasons. I can do that as an independent contractor.
Can you say there's nothing morally, ethically or legally wrong with that? Is it fair for me to say that any additional work that you do, there's a benefit, the benefit comes from your connection with RTE?
I'd like to think that it's broad, that the appeal is not just the appeal. I mean,
you've been there since the age of 12. You know?
Yeah, I have. But if HarperCollins asked me to write a history book, does it matter that I work in RTE? I don't know. That's for them to answer. I don't want to overstate my value to somewhere.
In your open statement today, and a number of times this morning at PAC, you say that you took a pay cut, and I think to most people out there, a pay cut is where you work the same hours and conditions for less pay. But that's not the case here. In the contract negotiations, in your email, Noel, you state that reduce fees has to reflect the reduced levels of services. Has to reflect a reduced level of services. So in simple terms, that means that you would get paid less, but there would be less work. So can you reasonably call that a pay cut?
Yeah. So in relation to reductions, Ryan took a 40% pay cut from 2012. It's 40%. And again, in relation to the Late Late Show, is 9:30 to 11:30. It's supposed to be the hours 9:30 to 11:30, right? Any extra, so I believe the new Late Late, so Ryan did 38 2-hour Late Late shows. I believe the new Late Late show is 30 shows of an hour and a half. Ryan did 38 shows of 2 to 2.5 hours. So every 15 minutes or 20 minutes is an extra ad slot, more ads, So in the new world, if it finishes at 11 o'clock, it's a different value to the commercial organisation as such. So over the period of those 6 years, there was a 40% pay cut. The contract went from 545 to 440. And over those 6 years, the commercial revenue, and I'm talking about the commercial part, the commercial revenue to RTE, between the Late Late Show, advertising, sponsorship, text 12345 for the viewers' prize, the radio show, was 100 million euros over 6 years. 100 million euros. So, it's a very demanding schedule. Like you're 38 weeks, you can't take any time. You've radio, then you've got that. So you have a little bit of time off during the summer. I know it's a lot of money, and it's not about the amount of money. And Ryan said to himself after COVID, he left himself on the floor. He was and he was turning 50, trying to do all this stuff. And as an independent contractor, he'd be paid less than half to do radio, but he can do famine documentary, he can write another book. He just wants to change his life.
Yeah.
It's time for him to change. And it's also time, as it was after Gay and Pat, it's time for somebody else to do it. It's time for somebody else to do it.
Yeah, it's true.
My time is almost up.
Pardon me?
My time is almost up.
Yeah, sorry. Well, I was about to elucidate on the joys of leaving the Late Late Show, but I won't do that now, obviously.
I've just, on the issue of the Late Late Show, throughout the documentation that you sent us, often, and you use the term Late Late Toy Show Live.
Yes. And
Late Toy Show interchangeably. I'm just at no point we're talking about the musical.
No. We had never any talks about the musical at all, and it was never something that.
And the live thing came to.
No, and that
is there a separate agreement? Is there a separate commercial agreement in relation to the toy show?
The toy show.
The toy show.
No, that's part of my,
it's part
my
of
contract.
Yeah, it's part of the contract.
Can I suggest something to you, just in the last 4 seconds that you have on your time? And maybe this is to the committee and to all the members of this particular committee. I mean, in the event that I do keep my job, and it's touch and go from my understanding of it at the moment, you know, I'd be happy to suggest that in the future we'd have a situation where you would publish my contract on an annual basis, you know, with a few, obviously, for redactions for personnel or what have you, with the money and the salary and the earnings there straight up. Like, if RTE are going through a cathartic week, let this be part of it. I will offer that. I mean, I have nothing to hide. I put the contract out, put it online, tell everyone how much I earn. Don't wait for 3 years and then have this codology that can happen all this time later, despite us saying it at the time. So I hope that's of use to you, but I'm happy to offer that today.
Just a final question. Oh, you're fine. Okay. Colleagues and witnesses, I'm obviously mindful of the fact that we're at the halfway mark, but we actually haven't met the halfway mark in terms of colleagues. Senator Malcolm Byrne is next. Are you able to go on for one more witness, or do you want your break
Delighted
now?
to talk to Senator Byrne, of course.
Okay, we'll continue.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Is that okay with everybody?
Are you okay, Senator? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and when Senator Byrne's finished, we'll recess for 10 minutes and then back again.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, I want to thank you, Chair, and I want to thank the witnesses. Ryan, I think it's fair to say you and I know each other a long time. We were in UCD together. We were friendly at the time. I know how committed you are to radio. I know even back then you were deeply committed to broadcasting, and I think there is a passion that is there, and I think everybody recognises your talents, and obviously this is having a big personal impact on you.
Yes, it is.
But I think, you know, it is important for us, and I think for you, that we get the full picture here. It's, as colleagues said, it's not about a witch hunt. This is about getting a full picture.
I understand that.
And I think what is emerging really is around a culture that exists within RTE that's going to have to change.
Yes.
So my first question to you is, and it's very simple, do you believe in all of this, that you have done anything wrong?
I think that the only thing that I can answer that is in a way that's reasonable and fair is to say that I should have called out the figures when they were released all in one day on January the 20th, 2021. They were wrong. We had requested that they change them before in dispatches, but that day we didn't. So yeah, I'm not without blame in that regard, of course.
Okay, I want to reflect on, and I suppose this is, after RTE released its initial statement, both yourself and Mr Kelly released a first statement on the Thursday, and that was then followed by a second statement on the Friday, which was quite different, which actually acknowledged the problem.
Yeah, I can explain that if you wish. So what happened was we were given approximately 30 minutes warning from RTE to say this bomb is about to be let off. And we looked at it and said, well, you can't, because you're putting out all this information, so much of which we can counter and clarify for you. And it was, and we said, maybe, you know, it's saying this report, the Grant Thornton report, saying Ryan Tubridy did nothing wrong and all of this. And we said, you've got to include that. And they said no. They said, we're releasing the statement. And we said, the rush. So our statement, the first one you're referring to, went out saying we can't shed any light because we couldn't. Then that night was an all-nighter. We looked through and everything and said, actually, do you know what? I want to apologise to people because I should have called that out there as soon as I had the chance to, and I did. And then Then the media maul. Now the media are brilliant. They're my colleagues and some of them are my friends. So I'm not having to go at the media. They're doing the job. I get that. But I'm just saying that there was a mauling of sorts, right, for 3 weeks. And that's why we get to today where we've tried, like we've put this together with a view to be transparent.
Let me come back to the question. Why do you think your salary was understated? I mean, you know, this should be figures. Most people know what their salaries are. You know what your salary is. People in RTE. Why do you think those figures were understated?
Again, it was a mistake on RTE's part because we'd written to them and said, this is wrong. And they sent,
Well, no, what happened, not only that, but we also, there was an assumption. We had said before, lads, this...
Well, can I ask?
Sorry, just to finish, very brief, sorry, Senator. And there was this assumption that here's an organisation that has, you know, a CFO, internal auditors, etc. But not only that, the figures have been externally audited and so on. So you have an assumption, naive as it may be, that they had their reasons.
Who do you think is responsible, therefore, for the incorrect figures being issued?
Without question, RTE.
But who in RTE?
Oh, that's Noel will tell you. I mean,
who in RTE do you believe is responsible for misstating your client's salary figures?
We had done the contract, and again, always in the main term.
Well, hang on. Well, who did you complain to? You said you complained.
Oh, yeah, the letter to explain to them that you're uncomfortable with the the way they were showing.
Because these figures are discussed widely.
The documents in your
page 14.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the document.
That should clarify that for you.
Essentially made changes to the side letter, etc. So then on the side letter, we asked them to take out all of this because they were trying to offset a payment that you didn't take or invoice. So this is the 120,000. So Ryan never took it, never invoiced for it, and they said they were going to offset it. So it's an accountancy thing. So we go, well, if it's for what I thought is if it's not there, how can it be there? But they were trying to. So that 120 then was offset against 17, 18, and 19 by RTE. We wrote to them. And in it,
and you never received that 120.
No.
So am I correct? Can I just then? So the declared figures that were published at the time, right, were for 2017 491,667, 2018 495,000, and 2019 495,000.
Sure.
Those are the correct total figures that were paid by RTE to Total.
No, so that should have been 5.
So that's 511
545.
Okay.
So what happened was they had put a figure that we have an invoice taken or given against those figures. So it was an underpayment.
I'm just saying, Mr. Kelly, I appreciate that, but I'm looking at the way a normal person looks at their annual salary.
So am I.
And this is a challenge. And I mean, you know, there is a question that is here that people are looking and they're saying, hang on, we talked about it, you know, everyone talks about the salaries when they're published.
Yeah.
And you knew, even just to take 1 year, 2019, it was declared all over the media, declared before the Oireachtas here, 495,000.
Sure.
Yet you knew that Total as the company was paid 545,000. Correct.
Yes.
Okay. So you know, I'm just conscious on time. Ryan, you mentioned that.
So can I just say on that final page there, on page 17, they accepted that it was wrong.
I know, but for us and for the wider public, we didn't know, and this is the problem.
Sure.
Okay, so Ryan, you've said that you're going to, if the gigs don't happen, if the Renault gigs don't happen, you're going to pay the money back.
Yes.
To whom are you going to pay it back?
To Renault or whoever paid it.
Well, Astas paid it. Renault paid the first, and then Astas paid the last two.
So does the cheque or the bank transfer go to pay Astas Limited or pay Renault or pay RTE?
Whoever paid it.
So if it's Astas,
so who do you think you're paying it to?
I think the answer is Astas, which to me, as a result of the discoveries in the last week or two, is what? RTE.
We know now it's RTE.
So it goes back to RTE.
Yes. So it goes
through
back
this bizarre.
Okay, I'm still so we knew, and I want to come to you, Mr. Kelly, and you're a very experienced negotiator. We know this in terms of those who you represent. And I asked the questions, when the executive were in here, as to, who was in the room with you, and then you kindly, to some of our colleagues earlier today, outlined, who you had been dealing with. Mm-hmm. One of the key people who very clearly knew about some of the deals was Jim Jennings. So is it fair to say that Jim Jennings would have been the individual who pulled the deal together with RTE, or with Renault, sorry?
No, the commercial would have been done initially with the lawyers when we were informed that they wanted to do it, and then it's handed over to commercial.
I appreciate that the lawyers would have done it, but lawyers don't go out and sort of cut the deal. Lawyers are the ones who sign up the deal.
Got this email on the 10th of March 2020.
On page number?
Page number 14. Sorry.
14 in your documents.
I attach for your attention the draft contract the two-side letters discussed and agreed in relation to this matter. The sponsorship agreement will be handled by our commercial team and will be agreed separately to these documents.
So you were negotiating at the time of the 2020 contract?
Yes.
Okay. And at the time, everyone in RTE was accepting, that there were going to be cuts.
Sure.
And we know how difficult a situation that it was. What you're asking us to believe is that, Ryan could go off and he could negotiate his book deal, or he could negotiate his documentary separately as a contractor. But in this instance, what you're saying to us is, while all of these salary cuts were happening in RTE, somebody in RTE just came to you and said, Noel, listen, we're going to offer a deal now with Renault. Here's the deal. Who was it that sort of said, we're going to sort this out with Renault?
Well, the initial email came from from Breed O'Keefe, because again.
So was it Breed that struck the deal?
The deal with Renault and RTE is completely between them.
I appreciate it, no, but you knew who this deal was on behalf of.
Sure, Renault and RTE.
Yeah. So RTE was coming, to Ryan. Ryan was facing a pay cut. Why, for instance, did you not go off and...
Sorry, no, it wasn't that Ryan was facing a pay cut. Ryan had given back 525,000. Not he was facing a pay cut, he'd actually given back.
Okay, but no.
525,000, and he didn't take the 120,000. So it wasn't about pay cuts. This is a separate commercial arrangement.
Okay, but why would you not have gone and negotiated directly with Renault?
Because we've no relationship with Renault. The relationship with the sponsor and RTE is like. That's their relationship. That's nothing to do with us. We have nothing to do with it, and it's minded obviously because it's such.
And did you not find it odd that we were in this period, and colleagues have already talked about it. Coming into COVID, there were pay cuts going on in RTE, and suddenly RTE were able to come with a deal to you and say, "Hey, we can mitigate some of this loss by." You agreeing to go and do these gigs with Renault?
No, they came to us to say that Renault want trying to do late show road shows outside of his radio and TV contract, and I can only assume that it was going to lock in that sponsorship for another 5 years, and they're still sponsoring the show.
Yeah, but at the same time, you made sure, and it was you that made sure that RTE underwrote the deal.
Yeah, but underwriting, RTE were never going to pay. This is always a Renault deal. That Renault were going to pay for extra services for Ryan. That's what it was. Never for RTE.
So it was originally to be a 1-year deal.
No, it was a 5-year deal.
So Renault were going. So your hope was that this was going to be Renault over 5 years.
Well, absolutely.
We're going to keep doing this.
Sure. And why I asked RTE to underwrite it was that if there was a change of sponsor, that we could then.
But what if
that's again through RTE.
But what if Renault pulled out? Was it always your understanding that if Renault pulled out, it didn't matter, my client was still going to get his sum of money every year?
If Renault pulled out and the new sponsor wasn't right or suitable or wasn't working either parts,
or if there wasn't
the whole thing would just stop then.
Okay, so then why was it that RTE are continuing to make payments?
No, Astus paid us, not RTE. Renault paid us the first year, and then Astus paid the next 2 years. Never RTE.
But did you not ask then who are Astus?
RTE instruct us. Honestly, like at this stage, everybody's so wise. We are just working under instruction. It's their relationship. It's a huge contract for them.
Would it never have struck you, if I was getting, you know, €75,000 from a company like Astus, I'd surely ask, who are Astus?
I never asked who are RTE.
But we know who RTE are.
I know, but
we know who Renault are.
But again,
I don't think anybody here knew who Astus were.
Okay, I think I'll have to conclude, Senator Byrne, and we can continue the conversation. I'm sure everybody needs a break. We're going around in circles a little bit. So I'm going to suspend the meeting for 10 minutes, and we will resume again with Senator Micheál Carrahy. Over to Senator Micheál Carey. The floor is yours and you have 10 minutes.
Thanks very much, Chair. And just to welcome both our witnesses here this morning. I think it'd be remiss of me not, while we're discussing what we're discussing today, not to acknowledge the good work that you've done down through the years, and you know, the joy in particular to those as parents of young kids that the Choice Show does provide on an annual basis in our house. So I just want to acknowledge that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
First of all, Mr. Kelly, I'm just going to come to yourself just in relation to the whole, I suppose, deal as such as it is. If I buy a car and I go to a car dealer, I pay for a car, I get an invoice for a car. If I ask for an invoice for a lorry, I won't get it. Why, when you were invoiced, did you use the term that you did on the invoice that was put forward by RTE, even though you knew it was factually incorrect?
Because that's what they asked us to do.
Even though you knew it was factually incorrect?
Sorry, if I can just bear with me 1 second. So on page 25 in the pack there, instructions for invoicing from RTE. That's what they asked us to do, and I had no reason not to trust them.
But as I say, as you know, it was factually incorrect. You yourself are a company director, many years of experience. It's surprising to me that you didn't question it. The fact that it was to a company based in the UK, not as in the first year, which was to Renault, which was for 75,000 plus VAT, 17,250. The two invoices then for in 22, for both 21 and 22, were to the UK at a 0% VAT. Would not arise questions in your own mind about the fact that this was an invoice for services which weren't provided, and the fact that it wasn't even VAT rated, or was 0 VAT rated to a company through the UK?
Sure. My antenna wasn't up, and I trusted RTE. Where the instructions came from.
Didn't find that hard to believe, as someone with the experience that you have as a company director, that wouldn't, and anyone that would be auditing or within your own internal company that wouldn't have a flag wouldn't have been raised in relation to that. What percentage did you get, say, of the Renault deal, which was in year one, which totaled, as I say, 92,250? Did you get a cut out of that deal, or was that solely for Mr Tubridy?
To be honest, we've come to talk about the issues that are here. I don't feel it's relevant. What percentage?
Well, I just really want to know, was there a percentage for yourself in that arrangement that was put together with RTE? Well, you're saying it was with RTE. I just want to know, sure, was there a percentage for NK? Did you benefit financially from this arrangement over the 3-year term in any way, or was it solely the benefit of Tuttle?
Well, as I said, we came to talk about the issues at hand, but that's not one of the issues.
But this is core to the issue at hand. That's the question. That's why I'm asking the question.
Well, yeah, I mean, these were the questions put by the committee to us, and that's what we've been working on.
Do I not have a right, maybe, Chair, to ask the question, because I think it is relevant to what we're discussing?
It's not. No, it's not relevant.
I think it is. I think it's completely relevant.
Sorry, the Chair, particularly the €75,000 payments, if they were via taxpayers' money, I think he has an obligation to answer that question.
Bear with me 1 wee minute and I'll take some advice here. Mr Carey, I'm being told that it's not within remit. However, if Mr Kelly does want to answer, I think, taking what your comments, you don't want to answer that question at this moment in time. Okay. Next question.
I think that's disappointing. think, as we said at the beginning, we were trying to get all the facts to all the questions, and it's disappointing that you wouldn't answer that question, because I think it's core to the whole situation. I suppose, staying on that, why did you invoice for the second 2 years from a different company, CMS, rather than NK, which you invoiced in the first year? And also, you might ask me, in the documents that we have here, as I look at, there's certain email addresses redacted within it, within the documentation over and back. Some names, some email addresses are there, particularly Geraldine O'Leary in correspondence over and back, but others at RTE are redacted. Whose email addresses are redacted, and who is J on page 11? Or I'm assuming that's Jim.
If I could read out to you, we got a letter from Arthur Cox, and it says, "Your clients, Ryan Tubridy and NK Management, our client, RTE. Dear colleagues, we understand that Mr Tubridy and Mr Kelly have agreed to attend Dáil Committee of Public Accounts and Oireachtas Joint Committee on Tourism, Culture, Arts, Sport meeting on the 11th of July. To that extent, your clients have been requested to provide documentation to committees. Our client requests that they ensure that they do so in accordance with their obligations pursuant to the Data General Protection Regulation, GDPR. Our client also requests that is provided with copies of all documents that your clients intend to provide to the committees in advance of your clients' attendance to the Dáil Committee accounts 11:30, 3:30 p.m, 11 July 23. So we've tried to provide you with absolutely everything, and this is Arthur Cox on behalf of RTE asking us to redact some information. So
Arthur Cox has said to redact certain email addresses, but not other email addresses of the correspondence over and back.
Well, that's necessary to comply with GDPR.
Why provide some and not others? How, if GDPR, then they'll be all redacted.
I honestly don't know. Oh, sorry. Yeah. It was proportionality, where you can redact junior people that aren't. They had no problem with the executives, but any junior staff, they didn't want, from a GDPR perspective, their names there.
Well, then that would tell us that there's other staff, other people have knowledge of these agreements that we don't know about. We only have been informed as the executive, so I think it would be pertinent to us as a committee to know who these other people are.
No, sure, and that would be a question for RTE and Arthur Cox, not for...
Maybe that's a question we could ask as a committee to RTE then, to have this information, name shown to us. Just in relation to, would it be possible, and I know Deputy Griffin mentioned here about the email threads between yourselves and RTE in that January to March period, would it be possible to get sight of those email threads, if at all possible? Deputy Griffin asked for it earlier, he just didn't get an answer, so would it be possible to get those?
I'm not sure what you're talking about, because we've given everything that we have.
We only have, the emails we have are really pertinent to sort of April-ish time, 22. I'm saying January to March, leading up to these invoices being raised. What was the discussion from NK to RTE looking for these invoices to be fulfilled, or looking for the contract to be fulfilled? I just would like to know who initiated that conversation, and just to see that conversation over and back, which formed this agreement being put together with regard to invoice and actus. We don't have that information in the weeks leading into it.
Yeah. Again, that's in the document, page 25.
No, them documents are dated the 29th of April, which are from, hi Geraldine, from Jay, I presume that's Jim Jennings, to say use actus. But in previous testimony, we were told the previous weeks that there was a bit of pressure coming for these amounts to be paid. I just would like to see any correspondence over and back to see how that conversation happened until we came to this point. So
we don't think there is any.
So just out of the blue, RTE or Jim Jennings decided to email Geraldine O'Leary telling her we need to invoice actus. So some conversation. It was stated, I can't recall who said it at one of the previous meetings, but there was pressure on for these two amounts to be paid. So I'd like to know, or like to see correspondence to see who elicited that pressure, where did that pressure come from for these invoices to be raised. And I'll be asking the same from RTE
Sure.
their documentation. So, but I'm going to ask both of you if you could possibly provide that to the committee. It would be, I think, beneficial. It would show how the conversation started.
Yeah. No, as I'm saying, that this document shows that RTE made the request.
So you did not contact RTE at any stage looking for these two amounts to be paid. They came to you looking to put this deal in place to pay. Right. So we'll be asking RTE for their correspondence to see if they have the similar view. What they've given to us as a committee, it does not tally up with what you're after saying. They stated that they were under pressure from NK to fulfil the contract. We will get all that information. We will elicit it.
And Senator Carey, just to conclude, you've no...
Apologies now that I was held up for a couple of minutes. So if I could go over, I'm delighted that you clarified the fact that the money will be refunded if the 6 shows don't take place.
Absolutely.
Which
I stand by that.
That would have helped if that had come out earlier, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
Today was the first of it because there's something, I know I felt very strongly that money needs to be paid back. I know taxes have been paid on it.
We've had, this 3 weeks to put together as comprehensive and as transparent as possible a series of documents so that you as senators and deputies with a lot more, I suspect, serious things to be dealing with can hopefully get through this fog and come out the other side.
This is
I'm
serious.
hoping. No, I'm not trying to diminish this. I'm just saying in a country with a lot going on.
It's license-payer money, it's taxpayers' money.
I appreciate that too, but
serious.
There are many serious issues.
Apologies now, I'm going to be caught on time, but would you say, Mr. Kelly, like how much advertising or product do you bring into RTE? Because you carry a lot of clout, and I'd say you'll be able to get a better deal for your clients due to what you bring to the table from other areas. What would you be bringing to RTE yourself as regards and from other organisations or companies?
Very, very little apart from I negotiate contracts, and then if we have some younger people or whatever they be that we were working with, we try to get sponsorship for some of their shows, but that's with an independent production company, and then we can try and put that on Virgin, or we can try and put that on RTE or streaming services. So it's the whole media model is changing. It's hard to look at anybody now to say who they might be listening to, what they're watching. I certainly know in my own household, my own kids are just watching everything on all sorts of devices. So it's a changing market. So.
And you have no other agreements with any other
Carrier,
clients?
we do have to move on.
Just a couple of minutes. I apologise now. I apologise.
Way over time.
Just in relation to being notified, Mr. Kelly was here last week, and I asked him he said about other information with regard to the timescales of you notifying RTE and then the announcement. And I think the dates you gave me was RTE was notified on the 13th by yourself, if I'm correct, and then it was announced on the 16th.
13th was a Monday, 14th, the 16th was the Thursday. Yeah.
He just stated that he's going to come back to the committee, our committee, with emails, because he stated that there was emails previously that month, which was putting together a list of names as potential replacement names for the role as a late show.
Sorry, Senator, who's this?
Adrian Kelly.
Adrian Lynch.
Adrian Lynch, sorry, Adrian Lynch. Yeah.
That he was putting together lists of...
No, there was a list of an email with a list, so he's going to provide us with them emails.
Allow me.
I will have to move on, Senator Carey.
But I will address your point. You will hear 10,000 stories about how the Late Late Show decision came to pass. There's only one, I believe, and that's mine. I presented that show. I loved working with those people. I loved the audience. I loved the job. I did it for 14 years. I ran out of gas. I chose to leave. There is no conspiracy. Now, people will choose to create one to muddy the waters, but that is the greatest definitive I can offer you today.
I have 1 minute. I apologise. It's just I got held up with the train of thought.
I know, but I have given you loads of latitude in 30 seconds.
Yeah, no, just in relation to the Toy Show, the musical, page 11 states about LS Live. You've discussed the possibility of a live show. Like, to be honest, my opinion, and we met with people here with regard to the musical. We thought it was a fantastic idea to create a musical here in Ireland.
Yeah.
But the fact that I think that you weren't involved, I think it was a loser, say, from the beginning.
Oh, no, that wasn't my it was just because of time.
But I'm just saying, number one, why did you not want to get involved, I suppose? And two, the fact is that the two producers of that show, which lost 2.2 million, have actually been promoted since. And one is actually, from my understanding, are they a producer on the Late Late?
But that's all RTE's to answer. I tell you, the two producers in question worked on the Late Late Show with me. They were superb people to work with. So, but the musical is a question for RTE.
And just in relation to the Toy Show
Really,
Fund, it's just questions that have been asked. Is that all 100%? The money's raised in the Toy Show Fund 100% goes out to charities. None of it goes to RTE.
It's one of the greatest legacies I'll have. Even if I am given the Royal Order of the Boot from RTE on Friday, I'll be able to walk out of those gates with my head held high, knowing that Irish people, year in, year out, in the last 3 years, offered year 1, 6 million, year 2, 6 million, year 3, 4 million out of their back pockets when things weren't going pretty well. And they have gone to 32 counties on this island to children's charities. It is a beautiful thing, and thank you to the Irish people.
I'm now moving on. I'm calling on Deputy Matthew McGrath, please. The floor is yours, and you have 10 minutes.
Well, my good guy, look, I'm delighted to meet you upstairs. I'm the Cuppa, Ryan, and you asked me about the badge, and your late granddad was with Liam mentioned that. And
as was your father, obviously.
Indeed. And look, you sometime, if you're out of a job Friday, which you seem to think you might be welcome down to retrace the footsteps and maybe make a film. Yes, of course.
Come on, use your time wisely. Come on, you have 10 minutes.
Taking the opportunity, but sure, look at we're here now.
Welcome our guests.
You can, of course.
Welcome our guests and thank them for coming in. Mr. Kelly, regarding the invoices made out to Astos, is it really legitimate for us to expect? I usually expect that we have an understanding the reasons why you were advised to make false invoices out to Astos. And do you find being asked to submit an invoice to Astos as unusual?
I think, as I said, with antenna up now, you'd certainly question. At the time, we didn't question anything. It was an instruction from RTE.
Okay.
Instruction from RTE.
And have you ever had dealings with Astos in the past, or has Mr Tubridy been paid through Astos accounts in the past?
No, never.
Okay. Mr Kelly, how many companies have you that you use to invoice RTE for Mr Tubridy's salary?
I've two companies, and Mr Tubridy's accountants invoice RTE for Tubridy Productions.
And do you now accept, Mr Kelly, that you created false invoices, even if RTE asked you to do so? That this is actually complicity in a potential financial fraud crime, aiding and abetting?
We didn't raise any false invoices. We just raised exactly what was asked of us by RTE.
But we now know that they were legitimate. They were different.
At all times, we thought Renault were paying the invoices. Renault paid the first one, and our assumption was that Renault were paying the other ones. But again, it was always under instruction.
Why would the invoice be made out by a sister company, CMS, instead of MK Management, and addressed to a UK company in Astos? And which company accounts are these payments, reflected?
Sure. We invoice, both companies could invoice each other as in NK or CMS. Astos again was under instruction from RTE.
So you just took your instructions lightly. And who exactly in RTE requested the false invoices be switched to another Noel Kelly company?
That was page 25 from Commercial.
And why was another Noel Kelly company so willing to create false invoices? Has the Tubridy ever been paid by CMS in the past?
He could have been, yeah. He could have been for it could have been a CMS event or or an NK event. It would depend.
Could have been.
And they would go to his company.
And why was it necessary for false invoices to be switched to another newly created company of yours, Mr. Kelly?
Again, it was under instruction from RTE to send the invoice as stated.
Can I ask, Mr. Kelly, are you fully tax compliant now?
Oh, completely. Always have been.
And could I further ask to the chair, have you ever had arrangements with offshore companies to keep your tax?
Not at all. We're a small company. This is we're not RTE, 350 million euros, a small company.
Okay, that's your answer. And Mr. Tubridy, I mean, do you now have full faith and full confidence in Mr. Kelly's as to be your agent, to continue to be your agent after all has come out at this stage?
Yes, I do. I think that he's explained himself. I think he has, at all times, produced a paper trail where it was necessary. So, yes, he's always had my back in the 20 years we've worked together, so I have no reason to say anything other than that.
But like we're trying to create get everything out in the open, start off with respect to all the employees in RTE and all the listeners.
Yes.
I mean, people out there don't. So, I mean, by you endorsing Mr. Kelly now, it's very hard for people to understand that. After false invoices, albeit you were asked to give them, but you didn't ask why or what. So, I mean, it's...
I think, Deputy, that I would hope that after today, people would look differently at the story. But I would also say to call them false invoices probably is muddying the pitch a little bit.
They were never false invoices. They're not false invoices.
But they were made out for things that weren't supposed to be. What do you call that?
From under instruction from RTE.
So I said that, aiding and abetting and deception. That's false. I mean, aiding and abetting. Please now, we have some level of intelligence. And so, Mr. Tubridy, over the last decade, were you ever an employee of RTE?
No, I think I've been a sole trader, so I'd be just operating contractor. Sorry, yes.
Yeah. And Mr. Tubridy, who do you work for? I mean, why do you work for RTE via that sole trader position?
Yeah, it's a fair
difference.
It's a fair question. As I recall it, RTE along the way decided that people like me, whatever that means, working at a certain level within the organisation, doesn't make you better than anyone else, but just makes you probably better paid for sure. I think they wanted us, is that right, to go sole trader? So this is not, sorry to say, this is not my wheelhouse in terms of detail, but that's what they said, go sole trader, and I did. And I'm in a position where my tool in life is words, and that's never been good. I've never been good with numbers and so forth. So I have an accountant, I pay him, and I have an agent, I pay him, and I kind of hope that they pull it all together for me, and they have so far.
Look, we all have, Mr. Tubridy, we all have, in private business and accountants, and we sit down and we have to answer all the questions and be sure.
Oh, I know it. I'm not. That's why I'm here. I asked to be here.
I know, but in returning our accounts annually, we have to do it.
Oh, yeah. Well,
we don't get a chance to go before any committee to address the nation. But
no, I appreciate that.
You're here.
Yeah.
And can I ask you, Mr. Tubridy, what are the typical tax benefits of working for RTE via production company, as you are, or sole trader?
Again, do you know the answer, or is that an accountant's question?
Again,
sorry,
sorry. Again, it's all the independent contractors sell hours of service. As Brian said, 205 hours of radio, 38 2-hour plus shows on the late show, and that's what they're selling their time. They're independent contractors. They've no union. They've no pension. They've
you.
They have me. They have me. And you know, sorry, if I can just say, and I have a duty of care to my clients.
You have.
I 100% have, and I am absolutely...
I accept that, but it stretches credibility like that. Mr. Tubridy doesn't understand any of the dealings that are going on.
Well, I'm sorry to stretch the credibility, but it's a matter of fact. And I will also say what Noel said there about duty of care. He actually cares about my head and how I'm feeling about the world, despite everything, in a way that maybe others
appreciate that. So do we all. We
okay.
This is not a lynch mob here. That's true. We all do.
I know that. I wouldn't invite myself before a lynch mob. I know it's not that at all. I fully respect what's happening here, but I just feel sometimes that there's an issue with people's health.
When a company's accounts are signed off, people have to take responsibility for the accounts, notwithstanding what their accountant tells them. Like, you have to know that everything in this is right, is proper, and before yourself and your maker. Mr. Tubridy, could I ask you, I do value, and my children and grandchildren love the Try Show. I did have one issue during the COVID with the whole Pfizer jab, the child being used in that way. I thought it's horrific. To sell Pfizer or promote them. Do you get any benefit, financial or otherwise, from Pfizer?
Deputy, not in the slightest. Actually, that was all done in a way that was not meant to be political or scientific. It was just of its day. It's meant to be satirical, frankly. So no, never got a benefit from Pfizer. No.
Never.
Never.
RTE just got all the benefits. Okay,
you can task them that on Thursday.
I accept. We're really asking them, but we had to get answers out of them in fairness.
But that's a different
You're more
story.
forthcoming.
Well, I appreciate that.
But I mean, look, and all that's gone on since now, and as I said, the fiduciary duties of the board, many of them are gone now.
Yes.
Like, all wasn't well there, so I mean, how does that fit with you now? I know that you've been getting a lot of criticism and all that, and I'm delighted that you're getting so many cards of goodwill, and we wish you goodwill and good
I
health.
appreciate that.
And
it's been a very difficult 3 weeks, and it's been, I know life is hard for a lot of people in Ireland. I'm not trying to be any more special than anyone else, but when you're publicly cancelled the way I've been, it has not been easy.
I can appreciate that, and your families, but I appreciate it, and we send our good wishes to them, as I said. But it's people out there during that time, especially, were suffering such huge cuts to their income. Business, small business, especially, wiped out.
I totally understand
it's
that.
hard work, and the fact that they weren't getting the proper. Are you sorry now that you didn't correct the figures when they were published?
From the get-go. The very day, well, the day after this whole statement came out, I said that, yeah. I'm sorry about that. Should have said something.
Yeah, but
it's a mea culpa, Deputy.
Yeah, and I appreciate that you're putting your hands up. So look,
yes.
As I said, so you still have full confidence in Mr. Kelly.
Yes, I do. He's my friend.
And I appreciate that. I don't expect your friendships to be upset, but on a human level, I think I find it very hard to accept false invoices. They were not invoices for the purposes that they were there. They were created by different companies and changed to a separate company again. And that is not standard practice for anybody. You couldn't buy a truck like that, as somebody else said. You have to get an invoice for a truck, not for a junking cart or something like that. It has to be a truck.
All under instruction. And
Thank you, Deputy McGrath.
You can't use that instruction to be just ask no questions. What is this? Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. You have to have some recompense, some idea.
You have to trust, Deputy. You have to trust.
Yeah, for sure. We know now what the trust.
Well, I know, and it's easy to.
And the license fee payers and their trust.
It's easy to know now.
Yeah, but you don't in business take everybody at their word, because you have to be sure you can stand it up and the invoices are legitimate.
Thank you, Deputy McGrath, and appreciate your clarity with your questions. You have run out of time and I've given you latitude. Is that okay? You concluded? Thank you very much. Senator Shane Castles.
Thanks very much, Cathaoirleach, and welcome to the both of the witnesses. Starting with the raising of the two invoices in 2022 by you, Mr Kelly, to the Barter Company, and the report of Grant Thornton. The document states that you said that you had spoken to the Commercial Director about year 2 of the 5-year contract, but she said that it was not her problem, and you said that it was not yours either, and that they should not have to come up with solutions. Why were you chasing money that for 6 appearances for which your agent had not yet completed the work?
Because you
preferred your client.
The appearances, the shows, the late shows in dealerships were supposed to have happened in 2021, 22, 23, 24. As I said, with COVID, the first lot only happened.
Okay, and I note that is and I note that is referred to in page 5. But the reality is that there was €150,000 in transactions credited eventually to Tuttle for work that's not done.
I know, but there's 6. There are 6 events owed, and as Ryan already said, we're still in contract.
Okay,
but
well,
if they don't want
that's okay. But I grew up in a world where you only paid money for things that you actually received. So from your perspective, Ryan, did you not feel that this didn't sit well, that you paid €150,000 to your account for work that was not yet done?
What sat with me, and the reason I can make this clear for you today, and the reason I wanted to be here for you today, is that I can say that there were 6 appearances outstanding, Senator, and I'm still ready, willing, and prepared to make those appearances and come good on the invoice.
Okay, listening to the evidence this morning, Ryan, you and Mr Kelly have sought to separate the 2 items of your contract with RTE for the Late Show and your morning show as a contract for those earnings, and then the tripartite deal, which both yourself and Mr Kelly have said contract for your services. and that's not linked to this basic pay. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
And Ryan, you have said that the difference is then the perception of that income for the other job. But this goes to the heart of the matter.
Well, reality.
Well, this goes to the heart of the matter, because earlier Mr Kelly stated that the motivation was one where RTE were attempting to keep the primary sponsor, Renault, to keep them on board, keep them locked in. But RTE's take is much different on this, because Mr Adrian Lynch stated in his evidence to this committee on June 28, and I quote, that in autumn 2019, negotiations were ongoing. The negotiations were obviously not going that well, or whatever, and then this idea, the commercial deal, was obviously generated, that there would be some brand extensions and there would be events, end quote. So from RTE's perspective, the negotiations, Ryan, and your pay were not going well. That's Mr Adrian Lynch. He said they weren't going well, and that there was a problem. And I would ask you, were you refusing to sign that deal until the commercial aspect was introduced into the negotiation?
No, I immediately put that to the person doing all the negotiating.
No. In the end of the 19 deal, again, if this was about trying to strong-arm somebody, Ryan had taken a pay cut of 525,000 for the next contract. So it wasn't about that. This initiative came from RTE.
But that goes back to what you said earlier. You keep referring to this, Mr Kelly, as Ryan had waived 120,000. He had taken $500,000. Yeah. My perception is that you said, Ryan, enough is enough. He's taken enough pay cuts. And that, as Mr Lynch has said, there were issues here where we can't get the deal over the line. And this deal was stalled until this was introduced. That is clear from the negotiations.
It's not true.
But it's clear from the negotiations. It's a reality. Mr Lynch said the negotiations were stalled in autumn 2019, and that 6 days before Christmas, we have a situation where things are now moving again because of the creation of the deal.
No, this is an RTE initiative.
Yeah, I'm not buying that. Everything today has been about RTE and an RTE initiative. The reality is, and so let's move to the emails from Breed O'Keefe to yourself, because she talks about meeting you halfway on the fees and so forth, and that's point number one in the contract discussions. But point number two is quite clearly the €75,000 from a commercial relationship, where she says, we have progressed discussions with a third party and look forward to discussing this with you in more detail next Tuesday. The commercial deal is central to everything. It wasn't going anywhere until this was on the page.
Sure. Let me just go to the page.
Page 7. Contract discussions, item 2.
That contract discussions. The email on page 5 came from Ms O'Keefe.
Yes.
So they're setting out.
They're setting out, but the point being that Mr Lynch has said that negotiations were stalled. Ms O'Keefe is setting out the key components for agreeing this deal. She uses the phrase, we are keen to retain Ryan's services. This was a key point of the negotiations, was this offer of the 75,000. You keep referring to the basic pay. The basic pay is one thing. The deal wasn't happening without the 75,000. And Ryan, you have said that, but I think in terms of perception, but we're dancing on the head of a pin here. It was still cumulatively paid to you. No matter what way it was then allocated into your accounts, it was part of the negotiation deal for you to sign the contract. Do you accept that?
That's not what I'm...
No.
Hang on a second. In terms of... It's on the document. It says, in terms of them trying to negotiate and progress the negotiations. Point 2, we are progressing the discussions with a third party. We're offering the €75,000 to you.
What, sorry?
So are you accepting that that was a key component in making sure that you signed the contract? You signed the contract.
Yes.
Was it a key component in making sure that this deal got over the line? Was the €75,000?
No,
that's not my understanding of it at all.
So, okay, so
the contract, the deal with RTE was for radio and TV services.
Yeah.
For 38 late night shows of 2 hours, 205 radio shows. That's what the contract with RTE was, and RTE then, I'm assuming, to keep the sponsor, wanted Ryan.
No, but that's not what RTE are saying. RTE are saying that the negotiations were stalled, and that when this emanated, when they brought this on, that this helped the negotiation process.
No,
and you're arguing
it's a totally separate agreement.
Well, again, you say it's a totally separate agreement, but it's all as part of the discussion.
Sorry, if I could bring it to page 14, please. From the Solicitor's Office, I attach for your attention the draft contract and the two-side letters discussed and agreed in relation to this matter. The sponsorship agreement will be handled by our commercial team and will be agreed separately to these documents. It's a separate agreement.
Well, I know you're categorising it as a separate agreement, but ultimately it's a cumulative pay, and it was put on the table to make sure that there was a signature on the table. What other deals were on the table, Ryan, at Christmas 2019? Were there offers from News Talk or Virgin or BBC that your agent was also saying that this was possibly that you could look at as well?
I never negotiate, Senator. You can ask Noel the question. He negotiates. No, you have to ask the man who negotiates.
No, that's fine. That's fine. But I'll tell you, my experience in past as being a sports journalist is that from agents is that football agents would have agents that negotiate with clubs. Don't tell me that they don't know what's being put into their contract or what club they would go to. And similarly, the same applies to you in terms of whether stations were vying for you.
Yes.
The man wasn't not talking to you.
Yes.
Were there a scenario where in Christmas 2019, News Talk or Virgin or BBC were looking for you? No. He would have told you.
Sorry,
did he?
I'm the one who negotiates the deal.
I know, and he's the man that would eventually be put on the show. So
exactly,
it's a fair question. Excuse me. It's fair to put to him. Had your agent informed you, Mr Tubridy, had your agent informed you of any potential offers from other parties in the media sphere?
Not that I'm aware of at this point.
Not that you're aware of. Mr Kelly, were there?
No,
so you weren't throwing that into the equation. Okay, I can't.
So I'm not a sports agent. I'm not a sports agent, and I can understand why a football team would be going with Man United or Aston Villa. I completely understand that.
Okay, well we'll move on.
No, there was not.
The details of the contract.
No, and Ryan loves RTE. Ryan wants to stay in RTE. This was if Ryan wanted to leave RTE.
I'm just finding it hard because Ryan said this morning at PAC that he does his job, Noel Kelly does his job. I'm just still figuring that you still read the agreement when you sign it, because looking at this, Ryan, over the time since you've worked with the Late Show, I think I've worked it out roughly that you've earned €8 million from your time as working on the Late Show. And what wonders to me is why in God's name then we were chasing these speaking gigs for €75,000 as part of the deal to get it over the line.
We weren't, and this was an initiative from RTE.
Yeah, but why? Why was there a need for RTE to throw it on the table? No, but why? I mean, were you sitting there going, Ryan, look, they're coming with 75 grand. They're coming with 75 grand extra. You keep saying that it's RTE that were coming with this and you weren't going looking for it. But I'm finding that struggling hard to believe that when Adrian Lynch said negotiations were stalled,
Senator,
here they came with a bounty.
Can I answer the question?
Yeah.
It's very simple. RTE came to us with this initiative. I can only assume that they wanted to keep one of their biggest sponsors on board. Sorry, can I please finish the question?
You can.
Keep Ryan Tubridy on board. Keeping Ryan Tubridy on board for another 5 years would equate to keeping a sponsor on. Now Ryan Tubridy has finished the Late Show. Maybe it'll be the same sponsor, maybe another sponsor, but that's all. I'm not a sports agent. We don't.
That's fine, and that is your narrative, and you've held the line.
Sorry, Senator, I would only look at if somebody wanted to move if they were unhappy in the scenario that they were actually in, and that's all.
Okay, well that's fine, and you've held that narrative, you've held that line all day. What I'm saying is that Adrian Lynch said the negotiations were stalled, and that when this was put on the table, that this progressed things on. And Minister, and I'm going to put this to you, Ryan, respectively, because in here, ministers blaming officials and turning to their officials doesn't wash it, because the buck stops with them, and they resign if there's a cock-up. Fintan O'Toole in the Irish Times last week described Mr Kelly not as your father confessor, but your attack dog, and that it was the conscience of the client as to whether the dog was called off. So why did you look for that last pound of flesh when you were being paid a basic of €440,000 for these add-ons to make sure that the contract was signed?
I'm not a
Senator, we're not responsible for Fintan O'Toole's commentary.
And I'm asking in terms of why was it necessary for the add-ons, regardless of the basic pay, was €440,000 not enough?
You've already explained that.
No, I'm asking Mr Tubridy directly, and I'm entitled to ask the man himself who is being paid. There's been a lot of latitude, Chairman, with the height of respect. I'm asking you respectfully, was €440,000 not enough? Did you not say to Mr Kelly, I don't need the extra 75,000? That's €160 on the licence fee.
To use your
it's
own analogy.
469 licence. 3,000 estates
to use your own analogy. Would a footballer expect a decent fee for playing for his club? And would the footballer have his agent negotiate a decent fee to play for his club? And somebody who was a sports journalist, as you've claimed, and I presume it's true, that has to be taken into consideration. So with that in mind, this man negotiates my salary situation, my contract situation. He is, as he said before, he minds my business, and he minds me too. He's a good person.
He has struck a good deal. But what I'm struggling with today.
That's what I'm trying to say. So you talk about our narrative, their narrative. Or this is not our story. This is our truth.
In 30 seconds, Senator Castles, to wrap up in 30 seconds.
Quite frankly, now, I mean, it is a narrative because it is putting forward one scenario, and I'm putting contention to you that there was a stalling in the contract. This was the sweetener to make sure that this contract was signed and it got it over the deal. I mean, you have said in your second statement, going back to the 23rd of June, when you apologised and said you should have asked questions. I mean, if there is a scenario where that you believe that the money in terms of Renault was still coming from Renault and not to RTE, what were you apologising for?
Well, no, I was apologising for
figures that were printed incorrectly.
Yeah, from the 2017-18.
For not noticing them.
Okay, and we will have to conclude there.
Senator.
We will have to, Senator Castles. Thank you very much. Moving on, Deputy Kieran Cannon, the floor is yours, and you have 10 minutes.
Mr Kelly, why did you agree to process a false invoice from RTE which falsely described the services rendered, which to a company that you'd never heard of, and not to the company that you were seeking to provide the services to, namely Renault? Why did you process that invoice, you being, one would assume, a responsible director of a long-standing company? And in doing so, in processing that false invoice, did you ever consider for a moment the huge reputational damage that might arise from such processing to a broadcaster that is held in admiration and, I would argue, a degree of fondness by the Irish people? Did you consider for a moment that if details of that false invoicing might emerge in the future, what the reputational damage might be to Ryan Tubridy?
Firstly, it wasn't false invoicing. It wasn't a false invoice. It was as per instructed by RTE.
Okay, just stop. Can we stop there? You've been touting that line all day long.
Because that's
I lost my dad a long, long time ago, but there's one line I will never forget. When I would come home from school with an excuse, if I had been misbehaving, and Johnny next to me told me to do it, his question always was, if Johnny told you to put your hand in the fire, would you put it in? You cannot suggest for a moment a credible answer to that question is RTE told me to do it. It was a false invoice for services that were never provided to a company you supposedly had never heard of. Did you consider for a moment, in processing that invoice, the damage you were going to do to Ryan Tubridy if it was ever found out?
Again, it wasn't a false invoice. And we invoiced Renault, first of all, then under instruction we invoiced the other company. We assumed it was Renault paying. We all know now. But
no. You then
always assumed that it was Renault paying. But again, we were acting under instruction.
Did you see the invoice before it was issued from your company?
Did I see it?
Yes.
No.
You didn't see it?
Sorry.
The invoice that was issued by CMS to RTE for consultancy service, did you personally see that invoice before it issued?
Yeah. Sorry, no, Brian had sent it.
Who's Brian?
Brian is our accountant.
Okay, and you didn't see the invoice?
No, I said Brian had sent it.
Okay, but did you see it?
Yeah. I know. I obviously am aware of it now, but I wouldn't have necessarily been aware of it at the time.
So you're saying that this invoice that issued to RTE on behalf of CMS for consultancy services, you had no sight of that invoice before it issued to RTE?
Well, the instructions would have went to our accountant.
From the instructions from who?
From RTE.
Yes, but again, I'm asking the question the third time. The invoice that issued to RTE on behalf of CMS for consultancy services, did you personally see it?
I honestly can't remember.
You can't remember? No.
I honestly can't remember.
Okay. How many years has your company, Noel Kelly Management, been issuing invoices to RTE for services rendered across all your roster of clients?
Well, CMS is our original company, which will be 26 years old, and then NK was formed in 2006 as a separate company just to work on talent, books, all that sort of. So it was separated out as a separate.
So CMS would have invoiced RTE in previous times for other services rendered.
Yes.
Okay. In the Grant Thornton report, the reporter, the person who has compiled that audit, says the following: I met with the talents agent in relation to this review. Do you recall that meeting?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And he advised me that, referring to you, and I quote, the talents agent understood from this that in a situation where the commercial brand relationship with RTE no longer existed, or the commercial brand did not pay the €75,000 to the talent, that RTE would be obliged to step in and pay the talent this sum. Is that your recollection of the engagement and the discussion with the auditors?
Sorry, where exactly is that on the report?
It's from the report that was submitted by Grant Thornton to the Audit and Risk Committee of RTE.
Where on the report is it? Sorry, I'm just trying to find it.
It's on. It's 2.3.
2.3.
Paragraph G. I mean, it's a direct quote. I'm
Do
reading.
you believe that these personal appearance events will endorse and embellished?
I'm reading directly from the auditor's report.
Sorry. D. He believed that these personal appearance events would endorse and embellish the commercial brands separate to their commercial brands TV sponsorship. Yeah.
But you see point G.
Oh, sorry, I thought you said point T. Excuse me,
The
sorry.
talents agent understood from this that in a situation where the commercial brand relationship with RTE would no longer exist, or the commercial brand wouldn't pay the €75,000, that RTE would be obliged to step in and pay the talent this sum.
But at any time, we never expected RTE to pay this, ever.
But you required that RTE would.
No, what we wanted, sorry, and again, the relationship with RTE is with the sponsor. Pure and simple, and they manage it so closely, and of course they do, and want to mind it because it brings in a lot of money over that period. Sorry, so
the bottom line is, Mr. Kelly,
sorry.
You and you know you were acting in your client's interests, but in order to ensure that this €75,000 payment would be made for the whole period of the 5-year term,
by Renault.
No, that is not by Renault. You've explicitly asked.
No,
RTE
sorry. That was my point. Sorry. Excuse me. I'm just getting tired. When the agreement was made, as far as I was concerned, it wasn't for RTE to pay. Never was for RTE to pay. It was obviously the sponsor of the show, because it's extra activities. It's a separate contract. It shows that are still owed. Like, we never expected that RTE were going to be paying that. But yet, the agreement was with RTE.
Why then did you require?
Sorry, and I'll tell you why. In case, so say a new sponsor came in, and I don't want to name a brand in case it's fluffy
Can I just stop you there?
pillows
You've been
limited.
mentioning the new sponsor opportunity all day long.
No, I'm not. I'm saying just call it fluffy pillows, whatever it may be. So once
but
there's
we're in the middle of a pandemic, so fluffy pillows were
to work with them.
One voice.
Fluffy pillows, etc., weren't exactly queuing up in the middle of a pandemic to fork out €75,000 per annum for whatever services might be rendered.
But deputies,
so the bottom line is, you were aware that entering into a really difficult period for the country and for business financially, that there was a possibility that any sponsor, no sponsor might exist for the remaining years of the contract.
Sure.
And then you asked RTE to ensure that it would underwrite in the event that there was nobody coming on stream in terms of sponsorship, RTE and the taxpayer and the licence payer would be left on the hook for that €75,000.
Can I answer?
And now, Mr. Kelly.
So, in relation to all of that, all we ever wanted to know that if there was another sponsor on board, that we would be informed. We asked to be informed in relation to pay, if you please hear me out, we've asked to be informed in relation to pay increases, pay top 10, and that didn't happen either. This is a commercial agreement, a special commercial, a separate commercial agreement with Renault, always to be paid by Renault. We never ever understood anyone else would be paying it. In those 6 years, as I've said, from 17 to 22, Ryan Tubridy's shows brought in €100 million. That's €100 million, right? Now, you can say, well, so, I could bring in 100 million, and maybe you could, but at the end of the day, this was a commercial agreement. Renault wanted Ryan to do the events. From RTE's perspective, it was great to embellish and to extend the sponsorship. We were working at all times under instruction from RTE, Deputy.
Okay. But why did you insist that RTE would put in an underwriting aspect to the contract?
In case the sponsor changed.
Okay, but what if the sponsor left? Well, there were no sponsors.
If there's no sponsors,
RTE
if there's no sponsors, then you wouldn't be doing events. You know, that was to embellish the sponsorship. If there was no sponsor, there'd be. And as Ryan said, there should have been 9 done at this stage. There was 3 done. There's 6 owed. If they're not called on, that money will be given back. So, like, it can't be any clearer than that.
But in the agreement that you had with RTE, in the account you gave to the auditors, you said the following. You said that if the commercial brand did not pay the €75,000 to the talent, no mention of any services being rendered or additional services being provided, that RTE would be obliged to simply step in and pay the talent this sum. That's the simple account, sure. The honest account, the accurate account of the arrangement that was in place.
And assumption being that original sponsor, if it was a new sponsor, would actually pay that. And if there was no sponsor,
RTE, in the event
RTE were never going to, it was never for RTE to pay this. And if there was no sponsor, then there'd be no events, and there'd be no.
RTE did end up paying it. That's the whole point.
We know that now.
Yeah.
We didn't know that at the time.
But you requested it. You actually specifically requested it.
I asked them to underwrite the sponsor agreement so we could actually talk to the sponsor.
I'm going to finish on this because 3 weeks. 6 hours of questioning today, and I appreciate both of you came in here to try and restore, and I think it's exceptionally important that we should collectively try and restore the reputation of our national broadcaster and one of its most gifted broadcasters, right? 6 hours later, in my opinion, we're no further on. And I genuinely mean that with the heart and a half in terms of what we're trying to set out to do here. There's the whole issue of the arrangement that was put in place with RTE, the deliberate falsifying of an invoice to channel money deceitfully from RTE through Astor's back to Total, all of that. Those questions are now left hanging in the air. And 6 hours later, we're no further on in restoring the reputation. And that, to me, is a sad reflection of the engagement we've had today.
That's a question for RTE.
No, it's not.
It is. We have answered everything that we know.
Your answer there. We'll move on.
Thank you, Deputy. Thank you, Deputy.
Deputy John Brady.
Thanks, and good afternoon to the witnesses again. Thanks for staying with us. I just want to start off with the tripartite agreement between Renault Ireland Limited, RTE and Ryan Tubridy. Can I ask, Mr Kelly, were you involved in the negotiations around the content of this agreement?
This agreement was put together by RTE.
Were you involved in the negotiations for it?
And we were, no, it was put together by RTE and Renault, what they wanted, where it would happen, how it would happen, etc.
Okay, so there's very specific detail in here in terms of dates. We know those dates because of COVID weren't honoured. Sure. Subsequently, they were. So those dates were put in without any consultation with yourself?
That's right. Dates insofar as obviously that the dealership, that it suited the dealership, that Ryan was free, that, you know, so it's obviously,
okay, so
you're talking
so you're part of the overall...
Yeah, it's all the logistics of it.
And hence why there was a requirement for the signature on the back, and we know that signature wasn't forthcoming until April of this year.
But the contract is from RTE.
Okay, so this contract was for 1 year. It was dated October 2020 to the 31st of December 2021. Am I right in saying that? It's on the front of it here. So this tripartite agreement?
Yeah, the contract's for 5 years.
Well, I'm talking specifically about this
that's
contract
for year one.
This is for year one. So at the end of year one of this, was there renewed communication, renewed negotiations with regard to the continuation of year 2, 3, 4, 5?
Sure. So 2, 3, 4, 5 would have just been other venues, other events. Again, all to be discussed with what Renault wanted with RTE and how that would happen.
So there was no comprehensive negotiation with a view of extending this particular 1 year contract?
It's a 5 year contract.
Sorry, I'm talking specifically about this, the tripartite agreement.
Yeah, sorry. The RTE, Ryan's contract is a 5-year contract.
Ryan's contract is a 5-year contract, but it does not, in Ryan's 5-year contract, it does not mention any reference to Renault. It does not mention any reference to engagements or anything like that. I'm talking specifically about the legal contract which was entered by you for Mr Tubridy. Was there any renegotiation of this after year 1?
No, this was year. This was year 1 of a 5-year agreement where each year the various events.
That's not contained anywhere in this.
Well, that was year 1.
Okay. There's no mention anywhere of any commercial agreement or anything like that contained in this 5-year contract, is there?
But the invoice was to Renault.
No, I'm asking the 5-year contract that you refer to. Can you point out specifically where there is mention of a commercial arrangement, a commercial agreement in that 5-year contract? Again, the commercial agreement was with RTE and Renault. I think you're missing the point. We'll move on. Sorry, they're separate agreements. I know they're separate agreements, but you're saying this 1-year agreement was contained within a 5-year agreement, and I'm asking, can you point out specifically where there is mention of a commercial element?
They're separate.
Okay. Look, we'll move on. Just in relation to the 6 outstanding gigs that you make reference to, RTE feel there, when questioned about the 2 payments of 75,000, that they were legally obliged to make those payments. You're saying that the 6 gigs that you make reference to, that element haven't been honoured at this stage. So are RTE wrong in saying that they were legally obliged to make those 2 payments? So if the contract was not fully adhered to? So the six events, again, 2021, they couldn't happen with COVID. The first 3 happened 22, the next 3, 23 this year, and then the next 3, 24. We've established after year 1, Renault was no longer paying. So they're out of the picture. It was RTE through some mechanism that was contrived to hide the payments were ultimately paying to 2 75,000 payments. So where is the legal obligation on RTE to pay those 275,000 payments? If you're saying that the 6 gigs that haven't been honoured cannot be honoured because there is no contract there with Renault now. So on that basis, will those 2 payments, the 150,000, be repaid to RTE?
If I may, do you mind if I come in? Without question, I've said this before today, and I'd like to clarify it again. I have 6 jobs or gigs, whatever you wish to do, to use, outstanding, and they were paid for, as I say, as you rightly say, in advance. The point being, if those gigs are not called upon, if my services aren't called upon, the money goes straight back.
Okay, so Renault are no more part of the equation, so you cannot do gigs.
No, they're outstanding. So, for example, if Renault turned around and said, actually, we want
can we move on? Just in relation to, you said, Mr. Kelly, that you didn't really have, a personal relationship with the Director General. Can I ask, in relation to your relationship with the Director of Commercial, Geraldine O'Leary, what kind of a relationship would you say you had with Geraldine O'Leary?
Again, I would have met Geraldine maybe once or twice. You not actually met her, probably bumped into her, but I wouldn't have a relationship. That's commercial. This is the only commercial thing there that we've done. So I would be dealing more with the managing director of TV. Excuse me, sorry.
So you had no real relationship with Geraldine O'Leary.
No.
And a lot has come to light in relation to the barter accounts, the misuse of the barter accounts, the slush fund, the trips abroad, everything else that went with it. Can I ask you, Mr. Kelly, did you avail of any of those things, trips abroad, golf events, wining, dining, anything like that?
I've, to be honest with you, I don't go out. I don't do a whole lot. No.
Did you avail of any of those?
I've never been entertained by RTE, and it's not something that I'm interested in. In relation to the barter accounts, the time we didn't know who Astus was, and we presumed that we assumed that the relationship was with Renault. But I've no friendship or relationship with Geraldine O'Leary.
You didn't receive any benefit from RTE in terms of any of those trips abroad or wining, dining, golf outings or anything. Did any of your staff members?
Any of that? I've no idea of any of that.
Would any of your staff members?
No, sure. No, not at all.
Okay. And in terms of gifts from your company to anyone on RTE, is that something that you would do?
No. Christmas cards.
Christmas cards. Okay. Just in relation to the issuing of the false invoices, and Mr. Kelly, again, you will be acutely aware of the responsibilities for company directors, ensuring that their actions are legal, ethical, and in the best interests of the company. The due diligence that must be applied. So there's an onus and a responsibility on you. Now, you have stated from the outset here, and you've held the line that you are acting under the instruction of RTE, that, and on that basis, those invoices were issued. Ignorance is no defence in law, Mr. Kelly. So do you still stand over that you were doing your job appropriately?
Sure.
In not providing any due diligence and no legal oversight, and you still stand over that those invoices were correct and you've done your job appropriately?
As per page 25, we were acting under instructions from RTE.
But ignorance is no defence, Mr. Kelly. In hindsight, I'm asking you, do you think you've done your job in issuing those invoices? Not whose instructions you were acting under.
Sure.
In hindsight.
Sure, Deputy. I think hindsight's an incredible thing, but we are here today.
I know that, and I'm trying to get an answer.
And at any time, we act with total transparency, and that's what we do.
Okay.
That's what we do. And as I said, we came here today, but within this email that came to me, if he sends it back to me, I'll sort everything else out. These are RTE instructions.
Okay. I'm asking you in hindsight, the issuing of those two invoices for consultancy fees that we know has been established. No consultancy was provided by yourself or Mr. Tubridy. Do you stand over that those invoices were issued correctly and in accordance with the law?
Those were issued correctly and in accordance with RTE's instructions, and they're legal.
Okay. Just final question through the chair. And I just want to establish a clear timeline in terms of the engagement with the light and who knew what when. I tried to establish that earlier on. And Mr. Tubridy, you said earlier on that you found out about the light review. On what date did you say?
This is the report.
The report, yeah.
Grant Thornton.
Grant Thornton, sorry.
Yeah,
Grant Thornton.
I think sometime around May. It was from a recollection. Or was it May or June? I don't know the detail of that.
I think you said June earlier on, the 22nd
I'm happy to go with June,
or something like that.
Yeah.
Would that be?
That's good enough for me. Yeah.
Okay. And Mr.
Of June. Yeah.
And Mr. Kelly, again, when did you first engage with Grant Thornton?
So on the 3rd of May, RTE Legal emailed us, NK manager asked us invoice queries. 26th of May wrote to us, saying that Grant Thornton would be doing an investigation. 31st of May, we met with Grant Thornton. And then the 23rd of June, which would have been your first time, which was when RTE released, 22nd of June, was it?
Okay.
So the day after they made the first statement.
That's a whole month in the difference between you first finding out, engaging with Grant Thornton, and Mr. Tubridy first becoming aware. So there was no engagement between yourself, Mr. Kelly, and Mr. Tubridy in that intervening month. It seems a bit strange, a bit bizarre that something like this, would not generate some communication between the two of you, given the seriousness of the charge, the seriousness of the issue. So you're saying that it was the 3rd of May, and Mr. Tubridy said he wasn't aware until...
If I can answer that, if I can answer that, you've said the seriousness of the charge. is the question.
Yep.
In relation to that, we willingly met with Grant Thornton. And
no, I'm not questioning
that.
that.
Sorry, and in Grant Thornton,
I'm talking about the month difference between you engaging with Grant Thornton and Mr Tubridy finding out. And the lack of communication.
That's not something we would. I know that probably sounds odd, but you wouldn't be talking to me about that stuff until.
Find that strange. Given
I know. I appreciate
the seriousness of the issue, that there would not be no communication there,
I understand
and the personal implications. I find that very strange.
Thank you, Deputy Brady.
I appreciate that.
I'm now calling on Senator Maria Sherlock. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much to Mr Tubridy and to Mr Kelly for appearing here today. I think we've got a situation where there's a lot of people out there very sorely disappointed that we have a much-loved broadcaster, embroiled in such controversy, and now we have the national broadcaster in a deadly serious situation. So thank you for the paperwork that you've given to us today. I want to ask a series of questions about the pay cuts, and Mr Tubridy, I just have to say that what you've said in your statement about the depiction of the 20% cut, it does not stack up, and that you depict the Renault contract as being entirely separate, like that the Late Late Show set was to be used for these Renault gigs does not reflect that this is a separate arrangement. In fact, you were using the RTE brand for this commercial arrangement. And similarly as well, we're not comparing because of the reduction in hours, because of the increase in the pre-records between the 2015 to 2020 contract and the 2020 to 2025 contract. So I think that's just important, certainly in my interpretation of looking at it. But Mr Kelly, I just want to ask, in your letters, the correspondence back and forth, you talk about a 41% reduction over the past 5 years.
No, since 2012.
No, well, actually, sorry, just to say, you actually say over the last 5 years, and you wrote the emails in 2020, so we have to take it, it's in the period 2015 to 2020. I can quote you back exactly what you said.
20%.
No, you said, okay, I'm going to have to find it, but you said 41% over the last 5 years. So that
was from 2012.
This represents a 41% reduction over the past 5 years, and this is an email dated in February 2020. So when I look at the figures of what you set out in 2017, 2018 and 2019, and we expect that what Ryan was paid what was published was actually what he was paid in 2015 and 2016. It's on around 2.5 million, right? So if he was to be taking a 41% reduction between the 2015 to 2020 period relative to the 2020 to 2025 period, we're looking at some sort of pay of over 4.5 million or close to 4.5 million. Can you explain, are there additional payments in 2015 and 2016 that you haven't set out here? Are there additional payments that were on top of the published payments for 2015 and 2016 that would add up to the 41% reduction that you talk about in the correspondence?
Sure, thank you. The years that are in question are from 2012 to 20.
But that is okay. Well, sorry. And I just need to read you back. This represents a 41% reduction over the past 5 years, and you said that in 2020.
Sure.
I don't think I'm going to get an answer if you're going to say it's from 2012.
I'm trying to give you the answer.
Yeah.
That was from 2012 at a height of 720,000 to 440,000.
But sorry, just your own words here do not relate to 2012. They relate to the past 5 years, and you wrote this email in 2020. So I've asked you if there were additional payments for the years that you have not given us details for today, 2015 and 2016. Perhaps you may wish to come back and furnish the committee. But certainly, you've written this a number of times in the correspondence, and it's very clear it's 2015 to 2020 is the period that you're talking about.
No, the period I'm talking about is from 2012 to 2020.
Okay, well, what you wrote, so it was factually incorrect in the correspondence. It had to have been. You talked about 5 years.
Sorry,
you wrote the email in
can you tell me where that is exactly,
page
please?
10.
Page 10.
Yeah. Anyway, I think you will need to go back and review, because you do not really refer to 2012. You say the past 5 years, and that email was written in 2020. I want to ask you about the Renault deal, because I'm conscious that time is pressing on. We have two documents here. We have the contract for fees of 440,000 for 2020 to 2025. We have a one-year deal between Renault and Ryan Tubridy. There are no fees addressed in this document. Is there a separate document detailing the fees associated with this work?
That's a separate contract, again,
I've asked you,
services.
is there a separate document setting out the fees associated with this one-year contract?
Yeah, RTE drafted that document, but the fees are recorded in the emails.
But we don't have the emails to show the final agreement. We only have the emails leading up to the agreement. And you say that this is a 5-year agreement, so where is the agreement for the final 4 years? Because we only have year 1 here.
So on page 12, the February emails all confirm the 75,000.
But I don't believe that that is the final. Are you saying that on the 28th of February you concluded negotiations between RTE and yourselves for the entirety of the package, Ryan Tubridy's package? Because
no.
My understanding is that it was July was when it was concluded.
No, it was later than that, but this is where it was outlined.
So basically, we just have 1 or 2 lines with an agreement of 75,000 per year every year for 5 years, but there's no detail as to the services that would be provided after year 1. We only have year 1's detail of service.
I also have page 22, the email invoice request July 2020. So again, this is the relationship between RTE and Renault, nothing to do with us. Can I mention, please send an invoice for 75,000 to Renault Ireland for the attention of redacted wording as follows.
Sorry, what page are you on? Page 22?
Page 22, Deputy.
The page I'm looking at is the final page of the contract. So you're saying the email is all that we have with regards to the contract?
Sorry, it's page 23. Apologies.
Page 23.
Sorry, apologies.
Okay. So you're saying that all we have for the contract between Renault and Ryan Tubridy for the final 4 years is just based on an invoice?
It's not based on an invoice. It's based on RTE and Renault.
No, but sir, but I don't see a contract. I just see an email and I just see an invoice. There's a piece missing in the middle.
And it's partnership between Renault Ireland, bespoke partnership to include personal appearance, activity programme to be agreed between Renault Ireland, RTE and NK.
Okay, so where is that?
That's like page 23.
Oh, no, I appreciate that. Sorry. But where is the bespoke partnership document for the 4 years? Like you chased up, so we understand that there was a transfer, a payment made for the first year of
from
the
Renault.
agreement,
yeah.
Right? And then there was, you chased up 2 subsequent payments for which services were not provided.
But services are outstanding.
No, I appreciate that.
Sure.
But you were chasing payments for services that were not provided.
But services that are outstanding.
Okay. So where is the documentation detailing those services to be provided? We've never seen that documentation.
I don't know what. Senator, what documentation?
Well, the bespoke partnership, like, is in why would you have a detailed contract for year 1 and not for the following years? Anyway, I just want to, I think there's a series of questions that need to be.
Sorry, that was because I want to try and explain everything that we can. The contract was rolled over from 20 to 21 to 22, obviously with COVID. So each year there would be different requirements, different events, different setups. So each one that was done was different. You might have had 400 at one, 200 at another. So everything was bespoke to when it worked for you, when everybody could actually do it.
But we've no paperwork to the services. But anyway, I need to move on. I have 3 questions in fairness I need to ask Mr. Tubridy, okay? Ryan, you had a phrase in your in the middle of the pandemic. I think if I can quote it correctly, it was "mind yourself, mind each other," and upon the conclusion of this package for you in 2020, about 7 months later, there were pay cuts back on the table for RTE staff. Now, obviously, you're only one. You're one person as part of a team for both your radio programme and your television programme. How did you feel about those pay cuts, knowing that you had a guarantee for a 5-year period that you would be not asked for any pay cuts?
Well, I believe that I had taken cuts and that I was part of the pay cut process. So, I see you're trying to equate my response to COVID and my feeling.
I'm not.
You seem to be a little bit, but because it's just
but
that I would hate that. It really upsets me to think that people would think that I didn't mean that. That came from a very, very important part of my heart.
No, I appreciate
it really
that.
did. And, just please, while I'm here, the toy show, for example, and the toy show presenting that show, that's a very. That's part of my essence. Do you know what I mean?
And I suppose the thing is, what strikes me, and sorry, Mr Tubridy, just to say, what's
to be fair, Mr Tubridy, I will give you a chance, but just let the member finish her line of questions.
Of course, I apologise.
I suppose because I'm struck, because like a researcher on your television show, it takes them 12 years to earn 53,945
Yeah,
euros.
I know, and they're extremely good at their job. All of them.
And so we have on one side a guarantee of no cut, and yet then people earning that little amount of money, that very modest income, we're going through pay cuts. So I suppose I'm just asking how you felt about
I felt
those pay
that
cuts.
I was operating under the belief that I was undergoing pay cuts too. So, obviously, totally, outrageously different level. I get that. But I do a different job, and everyone brings different things to the table. But I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Thank you.
And just to remind you, Deputy or Senator, you've run out of time completely, but if you've one last final 30 seconds.
Two very final questions, right? Because I think these are important. I suppose you've said a number of times today, Mr Tubridy, that your job is in front of the mic, your job is with words, not with the accounts, and you leave the process to others. But as a contractor, you are a company director. And every year, you have to sign off on a legal document.
Yes.
As a company director, you and another director.
Yes.
And you have to verify, you have to sign off that you have, that you've taken responsibility.
That I've paid my taxes.
Well, no. Actually,
important.
it's much more detailed than that. That you've actually signed off on the veracity of the accounts. So when you're signing off, would you not take an interest on how some of those payments originated?
Well, I have to say, I always trust my agent, who trusts the process, who gets the deal done, if you like. So, yeah, I believe in it. I trust.
But I think the thing is,
to conclude,
and I suppose the last question is, throughout your time as a broadcaster, you've had to interview Taoiseach, politicians, people from all walks of life, right? Yes. And I suppose integral to being a broadcaster is integrity.
Yes.
And I want to ask you now, because you make it very clear you want to get back on air.
Yes, I do.
And I think there's lots of people who want to see you back on air. But is your integrity damaged, do you think? Given what you've admitted earlier, you should have put up your hand.
Yeah.
And
on
we have
issue.
these payments, which I don't think any of us are happy with in terms of, that ultimately were for your benefit, but, they were anonymised, your name wasn't on it. Do you think your integrity is damaged now?
I don't think I'm a different person to the one who, in the last 6 months or 14 years, promoted Vincent de Paul or told children not to bully each other,
but your ability to ask questions.
No, this is my answer to your question. Or promote child literacy and do all these really important things that I think matter, not just to me, but to, my fellow citizens, like literally kids reading, all these important things. And yes, this salary is enormous. I understand that. But that doesn't affect my soul. It can't.
Okay, we are going to conclude on that, Senator. To our witnesses, can I just explain to where we're at, okay? Because I know you're exhausted. We're near the end of the day. We are at the 3-hour point now because we were a little bit late starting, a little bit late back from the break. You'll be happy to know I'm the last person to have any sort of latitude to ask questions. I was going to keep my questions not at 10. I was going to keep my questions at 4 minutes, if that's okay with you. There are 3 members here who have sat through all of the deliberations over the last couple of days. With your permission, I'd like to give them 2 minutes each, and those being Senator Timmy Dooley, Deputy Richard Boyd Barrett, and Senator Eugene Murphy. They have been here for all of it. Would you be agreeable to sitting through another 10 minutes beyond the time allocated?
There's no question. I just think 2 minutes probably isn't a whole heap of time for people. I used to work in radio, and I know what 2 minutes feels like. So I understand. And look, we're in for a penny. Like, I mean, let's do what you need to do. We respect the process, respect what you're doing here. So by all means. I will not
detain you if you're not.
No, but please, we're here now. So ask your questions, and I wouldn't say that 2 minutes. Like, please take your time, but we do understand this. We're now into our 6th or 7th hour.
As you can see, Mr. Tubridy, they're getting latitude, so don't worry about that. Okay. So my own slot is next, if that's okay.
Of course.
Can I just begin? As I said, I'm not going to take 10 minutes. I'm going to cut to the chase and say that everything Deputy Kieran Cannon has said today would be where I would come from, and I would concur with all of the points he's made here today. He represents everything and reflects everything that's going on in my head. So with the 4 minutes I have a couple of questions to you, Mr. Kelly, first. Can I ask you how many personalities, let's say, we're refraining from calling people top hand, personalities, we'll say, in RTE do you represent that work in RTE currently? Maybe you may not know that off the top of your head.
No, 7 in total.
7 in total.
But only 3 that would have a contract for TV and radio. The rest would just have, sort of small contracts.
Okay. Can I ask you, you have been at pains today to remind my colleagues and the public that you have worked with RTE over the last 23 years, am I right?
3 years, yeah.
23 years. In those 23 years, representing various personalities, have you ever been instructed, as you've said today, by RTE to raise invoices that didn't accurately reflect the service you were providing or that your personalities were providing? In those 23 years, was this the first and only time you can recall that you're ever at?
Yeah,
and can I ask you why you went along with it, why you didn't disagree with that?
Because we've been working with them for 23 years. I trusted the process.
To you, Mr. Tubridy, 2 quick questions.
Clearly.
You said, if I'm right, that you have worked with RTE or been around the corridors of RTE since you were 12.
In 1986.
Very
God
good.
help us, yeah.
Can I ask you, were you ever employed directly by RTE?
Yes, I would have been for a while when I was probably about 26 or 7 for a few years, and then it became apparent that my career was going in a different direction to maybe I had realised, I didn't know. And then at that stage, somebody who I trust said to me, look, you're going to be moving into a different level now, and with that you should have somebody minding your business because you're completely incompetent at this.
Okay.
And they were correct.
Well, can I ask you, at what point in your career it was that you were advised by somebody in RTE to not be a direct employee, to go solo, as you said yourself, and get yourself an external contractor?
I couldn't give you the exact year, not to be evasive, just a simple matter of memory, but probably around the time of Tubridy Tonight, which then plus 14 plus 5, so about 20 years ago, thereabouts.
And can I
or
ask
even
you,
more, sorry, maybe 25.
Who in RTE gave you that advice?
I have no idea. I couldn't tell you for a minute. It's not that I'm trying to protect anyone, it's just like 25 years ago.
Okay. But that concludes my questions. I'm trying to keep...
Actually, it was a fellow presenter at the time. Noel's reminding me here, it was Jerry Ryan, actually, not a member of staff, if you like.
Okay. That's going to conclude my questions because, as I said, I concur with everything Deputy Kieran Cannon has said, and I'm going to move on really quickly. Our non-members, if you can just be respectful of the fact that our colleagues are staying on, or our witnesses are staying on, so to keep to your 3 minutes, if that's okay. Senator Timmy Dooley.
Thanks very much, Chair. And just to thank the witness, to recognise that they're here of their own free will. From my perspective, I'm here to try to hold RTE to account. I welcome you as witnesses. Not here to hold you to account. You're separate to what this committee is trying to do. And the big issue for us, from RTE's perspective over recent weeks, has been the view expressed by the chair of the board, eventually, of RTE, that there was an effort to conceal the payments to Mr Tubridy, which you've identified, and it's in the Grant Thornton report that you had no hand, act or part in that. I think people accept that generally. But there's an issue within RTE. Management within RTE in the very early stages seemed to suggest that only one person knew the entirety of that. Taoiseach, various government ministers have said that's not credible.
No.
I don't think it's credible. I'd like to know what you think, Mr Kelly, having been involved in the negotiations and the discussions.
Sure.
Do you think Dee Forbes is the only person that knew?
No, not at all. Not at all. And
could you identify for us, recognising the privilege that's here?
But if I could just say to you that any meeting that I ever had with Miss Forbes, and it was 6 or 7, and I can't even remember, that was about it, was always with her chief financial officers or their people or her legal team or other parts of the legal team as well. She was never on her own. She was never on her own. She couldn't. There's nobody can make that decision. No director general, no chair. It'd have to be discussed by too many people. So that's the bizarreness that one person could actually.
Okay, so just to move it on. I'm sorry to be rushing you because I don't want to upset our chair. Miss O'Keefe last week talked about, and you've heard it from others, that things were stalled and that they had to try to get a deal. You were doing the best you can for your client. Sure. That's totally understandable. And that this notion of a commercial deal was added in. Now, I think, I don't want to be critical, to be respectful to everyone, I think it stretches it a little bit to suggest that the two are separate, because in all the emails, it appears that this commercial deal with Renault is stitched into the emails. It doesn't make its way into the contract, but it's stitched in the chronology of emails along. So it's part of the remuneration. You didn't think it was going to be paid by RTE. I accept that, and I accept but Ryan has said that he didn't expect RTE to be paying for it. That's fine. But the Miss O'Keefe indicated that when things stalled, the head of content started to discuss and negotiate with you. Can you talk to us a little bit about what transpired in those discussions? So that was with Jim Jennings. Yourself and Jim Jennings began a conversation.
The issue would be that, or not issue, I would, traditionally we would have met, just we're talking about a standard contract. I'll be as quick as I can.
I get it.
No, but traditionally we would have
just
met.
On this issue. Right?
But this is the back to the issue. So we would meet with the MD of radio and the MD of TV, and collectively they would say, we want Mr. X to do this and Miss Y to do that. So then you would work out all of the permutations around it, and then what happens is it goes up to accounts and legal. So that's traditionally.
So is that where the commercial thing came in? The idea of not a side deal, but a commercial deal. Did that kind of emanate in discussions between yourself and Jim Jennings?
No,
because Geraldine was very clear last week. She's very clear. She's the commercial director.
Sure.
Somebody came to her and said, find us somebody to make this possible that will carry a deal. Now, she did indicate afterwards, notwithstanding her efforts, it became cost neutral to Renault. But I want to go back to where it was. So did that idea come from the discussion between yourself and Jim Jennings?
No, because Jim would just be around, like he would own
so where do you think it came from? So you have said earlier on that it kind of came from RTE.
It came through Breda's office, the legal office, that they wanted to do these events with Renault as a separate thing. I can only assume that it was between them and commercial to try and get more value out of the sponsorship and keep the sponsor on for the period of the 5 years.
And I get that, but it stretches things with everything we've heard.
Senator.
But it goes back then to the point that I think Kieran Cannon raised, which was that point G in the Grant Thornton report that makes it very clear. And you've used a word throughout today, and I've listened intently to what you've said. You've talked about underwriting and you've explained that. But in all the emails that you make to RTE, and I think if I was looking for an agent, I'd be looking for someone like you on my side.
I'd be looking for the fella who has the top 7 that I don't have.
You'd be looking for somebody that could generate more money than I might. But anyway, you also stitch in the word guarantee. And so you talk about underwriting and guaranteeing. And when you go into the Grant Thornton report at item G, it also talks about that your understanding was that, and I'll have to paraphrase, but somebody can quote it later, that in the event of the sponsor going away, are moving to somewhere. I'll just get it because I have it here, Chairman, and I'll be very brief.
Senator.
So it says,
quickly.
The talent also understood that RTE, understood that this is a situation where the commercial brand, the talent agent understood from this that in a situation where the commercial brand relationship with RTE no longer existed, or the commercial brand did not pay the 75,000 to the talent, that RTE would be obliged to step in and pay the talent this sum. Now, I have to read that as it is. It's hard to see why that would be the case if RTE were the one that came up with this idea. Do you know what I'm saying? Isn't it kind of hard to figure that?
Again, the relationship with the sponsors is with RTE. And what I was trying to protect was that if the sponsor changed, and the sponsor's still there, sponsor's still there, and this is year, so 2021, 22, this is 4 years later. So if the sponsor changed, that we will be able to literally have a conversation with the sponsor in relation to what they would need, because we haven't got that relationship. We don't have that relationship. That's an RTE and sponsored relationship.
I'm really going to have to stop.
Thank you.
Richard Boyd Barrett, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, thanks. And look, this has been intense for everybody, so I understand 7 hours of this is difficult, but our job is to recognise that the people who are the biggest victims are the TV licence payer and indeed the other RTE staff who have been affected by this and who were required to take substantial pay cuts, and it's our job to ask these questions. So I just want to make that clear. And at the heart of this, it seems to me, is that publicly it was stated that everybody, including Ryan, were taking pay cuts at the time, and then we have discovered that there were these payments being made, right, which were kept secret and which RTE executives have acknowledged was an organised deception, and that they were mislabelled as consultancy fees, these payments, by somebody. Right, now, Noel has said, well, it was nothing to do with us, that was under RTE instructions, which is a little bit difficult to credit. But the other bit of your narrative, and this is the bit I want to just concentrate on, it's following on from what Timmy said, is that the commercial arrangement and the pay reduction that was publicly stated as having happened were somehow two separate things. Now, can I just put it to you honestly? That doesn't look credible from the emails that are exchanged between Noel Kelly and the RTE during that early period in 2020. Because the first mention in the emails, now I haven't seen all the correspondence, but the first mention of the 75,000 from a commercial relationship is put forward by you, Noel. That's the first mention that I see. It also says in that very first email on January the 16th, terms and conditions of this underwritten and guaranteed by RTE. It goes on to say that the fees above would include the 120,000 owed to Ryan, and it also suggests there should be 4 less shows and a reduction in radio shows. In other words, the negotiating position that you were adopting on behalf of Ryan was linked to the overall pay cut, but then seemed to be insisting on things that would effectively mean that the pay cut wouldn't happen in real terms. Right? Isn't that a reasonable reading of what we're seeing here? And that in the negotiation then, basically there's a pushback from RTE over a lot of the conditions that you seem to be insisting on. And if I might just put this other bit, it also refers on the 19th of February to you saying as part of this negotiating process that we had a meeting with our client, which is Ryan, in the process of these negotiations. So that you were discussing the details, or at least according to your email to RTE, you were discussing the details of this back and forward of negotiations. So this is in the emails that you've provided us. Now, I haven't even had a chance to read them all, but that, on the face of it, that's what it looks like. Right, from here, and I'm trying to be genuinely objective, and I hear what you're saying, but that looks like you are pushing for everything to mitigate against the pay cut.
Do you want to?
Okay. So, page 5 of the relevant documents is from, again, the chief legal officer, the CFO, and point 4. Commercial sponsorship with third party facilitated by RTE. It wasn't started, or it wasn't. We didn't go looking for that or start it. That was completely facilitated by them. In relation to contract, but of course, sorry, if I could just answer.
Okay,
in relation to contract, there's always back and forth. RTE's job is to give and BBC and ITV is to give as little as possible to get the greatest return, to get the greatest commercial return, and it's all based on advertising and commercial revenue.
But no, I have to honestly say this. The first mention in the email back and forward of a commercial arrangement is in your correspondence where you set down the conditions of accepting the overall pay reduction. And then, in fact, it's clear from the responses from RTE that they only subsequently identified who that commercial entity might be.
So that email that you referenced, Deputy, was in response to point 4, commercial sponsorship with third party facilitated by RTE, page 5.4. So I was responding to that. So no emails originated. All along, it was an RTE and a Renault sponsorship, and they guard it jealously. You know, and of course you would. And in commercial organisations, they mind their advertisers, they mind the sponsors, and that's what you have to do. You have to make sure that they come back again. So that's all that
No,
was.
I'll be honest, from looking at this, it doesn't look that way, right? I've just been honest with you. Very last, just...
Yeah,
absolutely. On the tripartite agreement that, for October 2020-21, could you just explain why it wasn't signed by, I think it's Niamh McCormack, on behalf of Ryan Tubridy until the 21st of the 4th, 2023? And last question, Joe, well, I have, because I won't get another chance. Ryan, do you think, on reflection, right, when you look at what's happened, the public feeling about this, do you think people would be justified in saying that the huge sort of gap between the pay that top presenters such as yourself get and what the production team at the back, which is a fraction of that, should be something that people fairly would look at and question the gap between those two things?
I would agree with...
Mr Toby, can I just ask you to pause for a wee second, because I have a clerk that's meticulous about time beside me, and she's very conscious that we've run well over time. So just before you respond, would you mind if I just asked Senator Murphy if he had a quick question or comment that he could come in with that, and then you could respond over to
As
everybody?
a group, I'm not trying to avoid your question.
You're fine.
Thank you.
Senator Murphy,
this as well, because you've managed to get everybody in. I really appreciate, Ryan and Noel, that you've come here in your own capacity. You offered to come here, and you've had 6 grueling hours. There's no doubt about that. And I also know this takes a toll on families, because we as politicians know.
Glad you mentioned that.
When something happens,
thank you for saying
ourselves, we see how our families are affected.
There's a lot of collateral damage.
I brought this up again. It happens to politicians all the time.
True.
And unfortunately, we have a social media element, which have on numerous occasions have had total disrespect for people.
You know something, I hope that I can come back here in another capacity to talk to a committee about mental health and online media and traditional media.
So at least
that's another day's work.
We live in a country where you people present yourself to come here and we can question you. And look,
that's democracy in action.
Yes.
Have you
I want
questions,
very
Senator Murphy?
very quick questions. One, do you accept that this, Mr Kelly, also thank you for coming, do you accept that this looks a bit of a 3-card trick to the public? Number 2, do you accept that it looks to be a shady deal? Now, I mean, you've said a lot down to RTE here. So on that basis, do you accept that this looks a shady deal?
Final question?
Final question to you, Ryan. Are you sorry now that you didn't stay on as an employee of RTE rather than go down the road of contract?
So we give the closing remarks.
I'd lots more to ask, but I thank you for
Give the closing remarks to our witnesses. So who wants to go first?
No. Okay.
You want to say a few words?
As Ryan said earlier on, and so myself, I don't do interviews. It's not what I do. That's not my job. That's what Ryan does. That's what his job is, and the fantastic people that we work with as well, and the great teams. The last 2.5 weeks have been absolutely horrendous, and as you said, Deputy Murphy, on family, on my children, on my business, on my name. And I'm here, and we came here today to put everything that we had, and that's exactly, we put as Ryan said when he left, everything that he had on the floor. We've put everything we've had into this. We have gone through everything. This intentional, unintentional, whatever, when the statement came out from RTE on the 22nd of June, and we asked them, and we had to get our lawyers to ask them. And this is why I kept on putting into correspondence, can you please inform us when you're sending out stuff? Can you please? And no. And it's David and Goliath. It's just, it's going into a vacuum. And hopefully that will change. But what happened was we had half an hour's notice. We asked, could we see it? Eventually saw it, asked them would they put in the correction, and they didn't. And here's the interesting thing with being an agent. I'm the only person that the people we represent have. I am the shop steward. Where's the care? Where's the duty of care to Ryan over the last 3 weeks? Who reached out to see how he was? And his family. And this isn't a pity party. We're big boys. But it's been pretty horrendous. And I wouldn't wish it on anybody. And I thank you, because we believe in the house, and that's why we've come here, and we haven't talked to anybody, only yourselves. That's why we've come here. We believe in the house, and we believe in the process. And thank you for giving us the opportunity. It's really appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Mr. Tubridy, any final?
Yeah, very briefly, because my goodness, it's time to wrap, as they say. But thanks. Just in answer to your question, Deputy Boyd Barrett, about the salary situation. Yeah, of course. It's all changed now, isn't it? And rightly so. And you know, if I do go back to RTE, which I hope to, it'll be a whole new world order. And that's why I said today, and I'd love to be part of that catharsis for the place, because it's a great old place. And you know, that's why I offered today. I'd like to release, if I was to sign another contract, I'd put it out in the public straight away. No messing, no 3-year, carry on. You know, I'd be part and parcel of the new process to build trust with my colleagues and the listeners. No viewers anymore, but listeners anyway. So that's what I'd say to you, that there's a lot of talk today about the talent in RTE. I hate being referred to as the talent. I think it's an obscene, outdated word. The talent in RTE, as you know, work in the reception, and they work in security, and in makeup, and hair, and sound, and camera, and production. That's the talent. They're the people who make the programmes you listen to driving into work every day, and the TV shows you watch at 6 o'clock and beyond, and nationwide, what have you. That's the talent. So if we do anything to change the language around RTE, please take that silly word off the contracts going forward. They're colleagues. No one's is better than anyone else. I'd like to thank you, Cathaoirleach, for your chairing of this, to the members for your robust but respectful questions and your time. And for the courtesy extended to us, I'd like to particularly thank the captain of the guard in Leinster House and his team, who were exceptionally decent and generous, and to the catering staff, who, for some weird reason, I always get on really well with. And you wouldn't think it to look at me, but I do. Thank you for everything, and to, as I say, to my family for their ongoing loyalty, and to the good people of Ireland who've been kind to me in the last 3 weeks. The kindness I'll never forget. Thank you all.
Well, thank you very much.
And thank my family as well.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
They've been incredible.
We appreciate you and your colleagues who have been here today. We do appreciate it's been a difficult day, but we do value the fact that you came forward of your own volition to both the Public Accounts Committee and to our committee to help us with our deliberations. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
So, colleagues, that concludes our business for today. The meeting of the Joint Committee stands adjourned. The committee will meet again in public session tomorrow at 1:30, the 12th of July, to consider